Do you think that even if there's an acquittal today, that Michael Jackson will ever be free of this accusation that kind of stands now, that he's got odd behaviour and he behaves perhaps inappropriately towards children?
Not at all. I mean, there will always be the odd, the odd media reporter, the odd person in the street, obviously making, some sort of comment or whatever. But at the end of the day, this man would have been acquitted. This man is free. So no matter what you say, I mean, the man is innocent of the charges. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we haven't seen the best of Michael Jackson. I'd say there's a lot yet to come from after this.
But do you think, in the sense that his musical career, he's not been in the headlines. He's got a legacy, phenomenal legacy, as perhaps one of the greatest pop stars of all time.
Greatest?
Well, in your view, yeah, obviously. But he hasn't produced much music in recent days. Do you think that this will, be a rather unfortunate closing chapter, whichever way the result goes? It'll be the final word on his life and times?
Not at all. I reckon Michael Jackson has History Part 2 right after this. I reckon there'll be a lot of music regarding what he's gone through throughout this whole ordeal, what it's like to be an innocent man. And I reckon he'll turn these events into music, and we'll see these events unfold in music all over again. This will not be the final chapter in Michael Jackson's career. We've got a lot to see from him, I believe.
What, you think there's an album to come out of this?
An album? A tour? I reckon Michael Jackson won't sit back after this is over and not do anything musically. Michael Jackson is itching to get back out there and make music. This year, he has already made History Part 1. It came out in 1994. This is History Part 2. And all these events that you see today is history, and they'll be written in music, and Michael will sing about it.
Okay, maybe he'll be featuring what we're watching on screen now, which is what must be for him an extraordinary journey. To leave his home, where we understand he's had some happy times. Perhaps this jury will have made some decisions, some bizarre times, some criminal times as well. That remains to be decided. But a home where we know he has found some kind of solace and some kind of happiness, and is in the transports, we believe, which you can see on your screen, and is making way to court. The countdown you can see on the side of your screen is the countdown to the hour given by the court for Michael Jackson to return here. We reckon, just trying to look at the geography of where he is and the time delay before he actually left his home, that he's not going to make it here for the 1:30 that the court suggested he should respond to the invitation. But that he will be here within maybe 10-15 minutes after that. There may well be some more delay before we actually get the jury asked the questions, which we all want to know the answers. And Sean O'Kane, how do you deal with the possibility that, as some of the legal analysts have said, the longer this has gone on, perhaps it's more likely that this jury has persuaded each other that there is, beyond reasonable doubt, a case to answer here, and that Michael Jackson is guilty of a crime?
Well, then you have to look at the legal analysts to say the longer that it has gone on, it could be very beneficial to Michael Jackson. So we have to look at it both ways. I mean, we are all sitting here guessing. We could sit here and guess till, as long as we want, but I mean, we don't know. We don't know. Legal analysts have gotten it wrong. I'm sure a lot of people here,
Let's be honest, Sean, nobody knows, do they, really?
No, they don't. I mean, we can all sit here and guess. We've been guessing when the verdict would be. I thought it would be last week. I can't believe, I thought it wouldn't even be today, to be honest. We really do not know, and we have to be honest about it, and we won't know until the next, number of minutes.
Just why did you get into Michael Jackson's music at all? Why are you such an ardent fan?
Well, hang on, I'd call myself a supporter first and a fan second, really.
What's the difference?
Well, I'm not here because Michael Jackson is a great entertainer. I'm not here because he makes great albums and he's the most successful recording artist of all time. I'm here because what this man's going through is inhumane, and it'll be unjust to society if this man gets convicted of these crimes, and I'll be more adamant in my fight for his justice as well. I can also say I would really need to go because the time is counting down, and my heart lies outside that courthouse supporting him. Sean,
okay, good. Thank you very much indeed
for coming
have time to say a few words with us on Sky News. Thank you very much indeed for that. Sean O'Kane, one of the many Michael Jackson fans who just have been outside this courthouse and supporting their hero over the recent months. And he's going to make his way now back across to the fence where the fans are being kept back. But we're watching pictures of the journey in by Michael Jackson and his family. On the main highway, the 101, if I'm not mistaken from my rather small monitor shot that I'm looking at here, which is coming northbound, essentially up the coast of California to Santa Maria. And they'll be making their way on that road for some miles, a very short journey then, only about a mile or so off that motorway, that freeway, to come into town and to arrive at the courthouse. Now, we can just bring you, talking to Sean there and getting a flavour. It's extraordinary actually how quiet everything has gone over the road here where the fans have been gathering these last 3 or 4 months. They were vocal as the moment came through that the word spread through one media, then another, in that this verdict had been reached and the hour's clock had started to tick, and they were vocal for a while. It now appears very calm and very quiet over there as perhaps a moment of reflection comes in. Let's just, though, stay with the fans if we may, because a short time ago we'll actually hear from the fans in a little while. Okay, let's stay with the pictures of the car coming along the freeway, and let's bring in my colleague Jane Secker, who's been reporting live from this case. The latest developments,
Yeah, the latest
Jane?
we're hearing is that the sheriffs have given Michael Jackson until 1:45 our time to get here, which is around 9:45 UK time. So that's a quarter of an hour after the initial time that we thought that the verdict was going to be read. We hear that he's been told he's got until quarter to the hour, which would add up to what we had been told initially, that we would have about a 90-minute time, an hour, 90 minutes for him to get here, which perhaps gives us some indication of why he had a little bit of a delay before he left Neverland, but he certainly isn't likely to get here much before that time anyway, because he didn't get away from Neverland until about 10 past the hour. So Michael Jackson allowed to get here in around 20 to 25 minutes time by my watch, maybe a little earlier depending on how fast they're going. They look to be speeding down that highway. Goodness knows how fast they're going. They have been stopped once before en route to the court, not for speeding we were told, but because of the tinted glass, which apparently breaches some federal regulations here in California. But they are en route. I think they'll probably be here within the next 10 minutes myself, Martin.
Okay, Jane, the helicopter shots are pretty good. We're staying with them. There's an occasional little break up on the pictures. You can see that we've reset our countdown clock back at Sky Centre here now. 1:45 is the time, as Jane's just updated us, so we've reset that clock to that time. As Jane was just suggesting, it could well be that Michael Jackson will arrive some minutes before that. So we anticipate then that the next major event here at the court will be the arrival of the Jackson entourage. Let me just show you the scene here, shall I? As we look down let's just look down the street. He's always coming in. As we go off to the right, you can see all the other cameras assembled, the number of people here growing in number, and this is through that area there that you can see that the cars will pass through that little entranceway. And then as you come past, there's a very big scissor lift with another camera crew from another broadcast organisation. The white gazebo-type marquees are the feature areas for all the television cameras that are here. Past those and into that centre position, right at the middle of the courtroom. As you can see, there's an avenue past some flower beds either side. That is the route that we've seen Michael Jackson walk before many times over these last 3 or 4 months. He will walk that walk again today to learn his fate. And the decision of this jury, which has taken over 33 hours, just about, of deliberation, will be known. It'll be read out in court, and we will be able to plug into the audio of that event. The court clerk, Lorna Frey, will be reading out the charges against him and inviting the juror, the lead juror, the foreman, to respond as to the decision that the jury have made. Now that, of course, may well be preempted by the question from the judge about whether or not they've reached a verdict at all. It is possible, although some of the legal advice here is it's a little early, perhaps, if they were a hung jury. If there is no decision, it may have been the case, and this is pure conjecture, that the judge would have allowed them or invited them to go back and talk some more, at least for another few days. So the presumption would be, and this is an implication I'm putting on this, it's not reliable, that perhaps we have a decision one way or another rather than a locked jury. But, you know, they have been talking for, what, the best part of 7. They've had 7 occasions in the courtroom, 2 of them quite short, the first Friday afternoon and last Thursday. They only did a very brief morning session before going off, some of the jury members wanting to get off to other family.
We have about 90% of this done. We're going to come back Monday morning and finish the other 10%.
Well, Trace Gallagher has new information at 4:30 on the East Coast and 1:30 on the West Coast, about 15 minutes to the projected reading of the verdict. Trace?
I just want to expound on what Arthur Aidala was talking about earlier, Shepard. If you're into reading the tea leaves and the scene out here, we have just been notified that there are some 50 or 60 police officers on the other side of the barrier, which is where the fans are, and they have just started pulling helmets out of their truck. No riot gear yet, but they are pulling helmets out, which tells me that they are being a little on the extra secure side. There are also mothers, local people with babies here, and police are casually walking up to them saying, I just want to let you know that you may want to take your child away from here because it might get ugly. Remember, this crowd was very much into the spirit of the trial at the beginning of this, and then as we wound down, they started getting ugly. We talked about this kid named Tennessee, or BJ. He's from Tennessee. He came out here, he took a job. We did a story on him on the Fox Report, and he really got a lot of media coverage, and then toward the end, he got rather nasty with some of the media and had to have a restraining order put on him. There was fighting among the fans, the German fans and the English fans saying, we love Michael Jackson more. They fought amongst themselves. There were protesters here. There were protesters against child molesters talking to Michael Jackson's fans. It's not just the fans and the media, it's the fans against the protesters. It's the fans against the fans. And if Michael Jackson is found guilty in this case, especially of the molest counts, he stands to go to prison for a very long time. And the crowd out here, some of Jackson's biggest fans, could make this thing very ugly, Shep.
And Trace, the caravan continues to make its way up the 101 northbound from Santa Barbara, the home of Michael Jackson and Neverland Ranch, toward Santa Maria and the courthouse. It's our understanding that they're probably about 20 miles away, 21 miles away, something like that. And as we wait for Michael Jackson to get there for the reading of the verdict, we continue to watch breaking news out of South Florida. And you are looking live through Skyforce 7 of WSVN television in South Florida at the crash of what has now been confirmed to be a DC-3, a twin-engine, a twin-prop cargo plane. We do not know how many people were on board this plane. We do not know how many people, if any, were injured on the ground. What we know is a DC-3 crashed to the ground and exploded in flames shortly after takeoff from Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport in Broward County along the southern coast of Florida. Updates as we get any new information, we will bring it to you here live. But it is 4:31 on the East Coast and 1:31 on the West Coast, and that's a live look outside the gates right there at the entrance to the courthouse, where a short time from now the future of Michael Jackson will be decided. Judge Napolitano, there's always the possibility of a split here, and I guess looking at what the counts are, if there is a split verdict, guilty on some and not guilty on others, Michael Jackson gets by with very little, because some you can't have without the other.
That's right. Shep, we've just started to review. I just got for the first time the jury verdict form. It's 27 pages long. This consists of the questions that the jury must answer with specificity. Guilty, not guilty, found, not found. There is plenty of room for compromise here, and there are plenty of ways that even with some guilty findings on here, Michael Jackson can escape jail. There are also some ways here where Michael Jackson cannot escape jail. For example, if he is found guilty of lewd sexual acts with a minor, and if the jury found that those lewd sexual acts consisted of substantial sexual conduct, not only may he not get probation, but he must go to jail immediately. That is, the moment the jury verdict forms have finished being read into the record.
Judge Andrew Napolitano, thank you. Trace Gallagher out in front of the courthouse. Trace, do the crowds continue to grow? Because the speculation had been that there is only so much of a crowd to build at an event like this at this time of day in that particular city.
Surprisingly, Shepard, the crowd here is not as big today as it has been for other days. I mean, you'll recall when Michael Jackson was arraigned here the day that he danced on the SUV, the crowd was probably twice this size. Now, we thought, of course, it's all over the media, we thought by now the crowd would be bigger. You can see right now behind me, Shepard, if you can see, they're allowing everybody to go inside the courtroom, so that gives us a heads up. It's kind of a warning that we are getting very close. Greta Van Susteren and Jim Hammer are among those now walking inside the courtroom. I want to give you a rundown of what will happen if Michael Jackson is convicted. Greta and Jim will stay inside the courtroom, and they will stay until Michael Jackson is remanded to the court. If Michael Jackson is not guilty, then Greta and Jim will immediately come out to us, and they'll give us what went on in court, the flavor, etc. Because remember, all we're going to have in there is the audio feed. Lorna Fry, the clerk court, will read the 10 counts. She will start with count 1, conspiracy, and move her way down. We've talked about conspiracy being weak. If conspiracy is not guilty, Michael Jackson is a long way from being out of the woods because molest is next. If he's not guilty on molest, it's likely the defense will run the table. If he's guilty on conspiracy, it is likely the prosecution will run the table. But Hammer and Greta Van Susteren will come out and they will give us the flavor of the courtroom because there's no video in there and there's going to be a lot of emotion, Shepard.
I'd say there will. Trace Gallagher live in front. We're watching as the courtroom observers make their way in, and that's a look from overhead. Trace, are you able to see air right now? And if so, besides the signal breaking, you know, here's why these signals break up. You see how it looks in there like a number of TV screens and the picture's cut off in the wrong place? It's much like back in the day when you had aerials at your house and the signal gets so weak that another station sort of bleeds over on top of it. When a helicopter moves, it's hitting ground stations that are atop a tower. So as the helicopter moves, say in this case, north on the 101 freeway, it's hitting one tower, and when it gets too far away from that one, it turns its transmitter and points toward another one. And during that period, you get some downtime in the signal unless you have a very fancy chopper, and I think there's only one of those. At any rate, we'll be able to watch more of the caravan in just a moment. But Trace, had the judge given them any sort of information to say, when I say there's a verdict, you got to leave the house right that minute? Because there's no question that they didn't do that.
The judge said, Shepard, that he was giving him 1 hour, but that if it went 10 minutes either way, 15 minutes either way, he wasn't going to make a big deal about it. Michael Jackson clearly taking an extra 15 or 20 minutes. Tom Mesereau, the defense attorney, is now walking into the courthouse with his assistant. Tom Mesereau, of course, was hired by Michael Jackson after Mark Garagos was fired by Michael Jackson or left the case primarily to handle the Scott Peterson case. Tom Mesereau now entering the courthouse, things getting very close. As we watch Tom Mesereau, Shep, I want to go back to your previous question. Yeah, the helicopters, I could see the site. Oh, Tom Mesereau is, yeah, he's directly behind us outside. He is there with Sanger, his co-counsel, and they will be there and wait, of course, until Michael Jackson arrives. As they do every day, Tom Mesereau will sit there and guide Michael Jackson in, along with his family members, along with his security guards. We believe the prosecution, Tom Sneddon, Ron Zonin, are already inside the courthouse. And so, yes, but let me just go back to your original question.
That Michael Jackson failed to turn up, the day that he eventually turned up in his pajamas, the day that Gavin Arvizo gave that all-important testimony. Thomas Mesereau was left standing there on the rather hot concrete for quite a long period of time, making frantic calls to Michael Jackson on his mobile phone. He's standing there, he looks very tense, as one might imagine, stroking his hair, just waiting for Mr. Jackson to turn up. That convoy is still en route to the court in Santa Maria. We know that the police are standing by to meet that as it comes into the edge of town, and it will then swing past down Miller Street, through East Cook Street, down past the fans and into the courtroom.
And I think we're back with the heli-tele picture. It's been a little bit troublesome as it's made the journey, maybe between receiving points on the convoy, but we're now back with a shot. Looks to me, from the slightly grainy picture I'm seeing here, that it's still on the main highway. Yes, I'm back on a quality shot as well. The main highway. Now, this town of Santa Maria, like so many in California, built along the spine of the main highway, the 101, or that's the highway that links them all up, and so there is only just about a mile, probably a mile and a half, inland from that main motorway that Michael Jackson has to make the journey. And the picture, not perfect, but nevertheless we get a sense of that convoy. 1, 2, 3, 4 vehicles at least. Whether Michael Jackson is in one of them, well, we assume he is. And they can't be far away, otherwise we wouldn't have thought that Thomas Mesereau and the remaining members, the other members of the defence team, would have bothered themselves to come out into the California sunshine unless they thought their arrival was imminent. So that'll be within the next 5 minutes, and perhaps within this new relaxed time frame of 9:45 your time, when the Jackson entourage was expected at court. That's 1:45 locally here. Now, this is within the time frame of the court sitting, as it so happens. There's been some speculation in days gone by as to how the timetable of this thing would work out. The judge deciding very early on this case, before proceedings began, that he wouldn't have formal lunch breaks or coffee breaks, but instead the court sat from 8:30 through to 2:30 with some informal breaks of relatively short periods of time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, was the method they used. They got the day's business done, and then at 2:30 in the afternoon local time, they cleared off for the day. They broke for the day. By 2:30 this afternoon Californian time, we all know one way or other. Is Michael Jackson a convicted paedophile? Is he guilty of plying a youngster with alcohol? Is he even guilty of conspiring then to hold a family against their will at Neverland and obliging them to take part in a television program to try and prove his innocence? All these things have been debated long and hard by a jury of 8 women and 4 men, and we will know the outcome of their deliberations pretty soon. The helicopter shot focusing on the 3 black vehicles. I think there's probably a 4th when it widens out a little bit, making their way up Highway 101. I wonder if any of the other motorists on that particular stretch of road would know the significance of this day and the significance of the vehicles just passing them by. One can hear, Jane, on the microphones around the courtroom here that you and I are wearing, and also we've got other ones positioned, of course, to bring this event to our viewers back home. God bless you, Mesereau. Good power to you, Mesereau. Mr. Mesereau certainly having played in the mind of the supporters that he's fought a good fight in defending his client,
I think
Jane.
that is what the fans think. They've been very supportive of Mr. Mesereau throughout this trial. He is, of course, one of a series of defence lawyers that Michael Jackson has had over this trial. His other lawyers, Mark Garagos, one of his earlier lawyers, ended up being a witness during this trial and was brought to court and was cross-examined by Thomas Mesereau in the latter part of this court case. He is a celebrity lawyer. He's from Los Angeles. He has a history of representing African Americans. He's represented Mike Tyson in the past. He also defended Robert Blake, the actor who was found not guilty of murdering his wife recently. He was his lawyer early on in that trial. He's won acquittal in the past during sex crimes cases after having his defendant take the witness stand. So a lot of people thought that that could be one of the reasons that Michael Jackson might take the stand during this court case, but of course that wasn't to be. He never took the stand in person. Instead, we were played this video of Michael Jackson talking about his love for children, his innocent love, his wholesome love for children, talking about his childhood. Very, very emotional film from him, crying when he spoke about the abuse that he suffered at the hands of his father, and talking about rather strange things to do with his life, how he wanted to host a celebrity animal party at Neverland. And this seems to be the defence's way of getting Michael Jackson's words, Michael Jackson's thoughts into the mind of the jurors, instead of putting him up on the witness stand, because of course if they put him up on the witness stand, he's an unpredictable man. He's appeared at this court before in a civil trial, and when he was in the witness stand, he made devil horns behind his head. It's very, very difficult to know quite how he would react and how he would react under very ferocious cross-examination. During the defence part of this trial, we had Ron Zonin, who was the Deputy District Attorney, not Tom Snedden, the man who's pursued Michael Jackson over all these years. It was Ron Zonin who did the cross-examination of the majority of the witnesses, and unlike Tom Snedden, he was absolutely ferocious in cross-examination. He fired questions at the witnesses very, very, very quickly, barely gave them time to draw breath. Several times the court clerk and the judge had to ask him to slow down in order to be able to take notes. So possibly that could be another reason that Thomas Mesereau decided that he didn't want Michael Jackson to take the witness stand. Michael Jackson himself always said he did want to take the witness stand. He said he was very, very keen to tell the world in his own words why he was innocent of these charges, why he felt that he'd been pursued, why he felt that there was a vendetta against him. But he said that he would defer at the last minute and would take Thomas Mesereau's guidance on whether he would take the stand or not. As it turns out, Thomas Mesereau clearly decided that that wasn't meant to be. Now, I'm just looking at those footage of the helicopter shots now, and it does appear that the cars are turning off the freeway. Is that what you can see, Martin?
Yeah. Indeed so. That's what I was just going to comment on as well. I believe they have, and there's something of a queue just on the turn-off road. We're aware from outside the courtroom here, I can hear a helicopter in the skies as well, which is coming now. Whether this is one of the police helicopters or the media helicopter that has been providing those aerial pictures, it's just coming the route we'd anticipate the vehicles to arrive as they approach this courtroom, which is on Miller Street in Santa Maria. And making its way in now. The vehicles themselves, from the last shot I saw, seem to just be stuck at the intersection on the feed road off that main motorway or highway. Freeway 101 is the actual number of it. Right, that would make sense, wouldn't it? And certainly the policemen here now seem to be making preparations as they're aware that perhaps the sound of the chopper in the skies has alerted them to that the time of the arrival is nigh. Now, the shot we will get is of the black vehicles carrying Michael Jackson and his entourage will turn, as they've done many days before, into this courtroom, and there is the defense attorney waiting for him. We see a shot again of Thomas Mesereau, his very stylistic man, in the sense of the very characterful flock of white hair kept in that slightly unkempt way, kept very long, but it's been a trademark for him, and it's done him no harm at all in terms of the business and success he's had as a lawyer. Will he be a winner on behalf of Michael Jackson today? If you're just tuning our way, it's 1:15. The main headline on Sky News tonight is we are minutes away from hearing live from inside the Santa Maria courthouse the verdict in the Michael Jackson trial. A trial that's been going on for nearly 4 months now continuously has finally reaching its moment of decision. The jurors, and we see the cars now just turning down the streets at the intersection, and they should be within sight of the cameras we have around the courtroom any moment, and we will see them make the right turn as they come up the street and pull in front of the courthouse. And we would anticipate that Michael Jackson will be, as usual, travelling on the right-hand side of the vehicle, so that as the door opens, he can step straight out, be greeted by his lawyer, and we'll see the pictures of him walk in. The cameras are allowed to show the walk down the pavement, as they've done each day of this trial. Thereafter, though, once he disappears with his lawyers back in to perhaps the holding area first, and then to make their way into the courtroom itself, we do not get any pictures, but we do get the audio, and we will be finding out live on Sky, as everybody else will, at the same time as Michael Jackson hears his fate, so we will hear it too on the audio feed we've set up from inside the room. So there's a couple of intersections to travel, I think, from the Main Street junction of the 101, and then he needs to turn down onto Miller Street. Clearly, the 1:45 local time deadline that was suggested by the court has come and gone. 9:45 your time. But there we are, another intersection. The helicopter picture's just picking up once again. as they're making the turn. And Jane, they'll be getting closer to you any moment.
Off East Main Street, turned left onto Miller Street. It's now only a matter of meters from the courtroom. You can hear as he approaches the roar from the fans getting louder and louder and louder. He had to wait quite a while at that intersection there. The fans are desperately craning their necks to see him. I can see from my point of view a number of them trying to climb high on the barriers to sort of see if they can get a better look, because of course as soon as he goes into the court complexes he's going to be screened by all the fans in front of those on the pavement. We can see the police outriders.
We can see the vehicles, Jane, turning now into the court.
Yes, they are. I can just see them just coming into the courtroom now. You can see the large number of fans through the fence waiting for him to arrive. Now, he normally arrives. There's usually a short delay as he arrives before he actually gets out of the car. This allows his bodyguard time to go around, open the door for him, help his family out. Usually then the umbrella goes up. Now, this we know is partly to protect Michael Jackson from the sun. He suffers from vitiligo, a skin problem which makes him very, very susceptible to sunlight, but also we've been told this umbrella is for security reasons. We see Thomas Mesereau leaning forward, greeting his mother Catherine, hugging her, and his father Joseph also there. I'm just straining to see myself from this angle. You can see that the umbrella has now gone up, so we're just expecting Michael Jackson himself to emerge from the darkened windows of that sports utility vehicle. Yes, he's out now and he's walking up. Has he turned around to wave to the fans? I haven't seen that yet. He has, yes, there we go, a wave for the fans. During the latter days of this trial, when his health seemed to be suffering so very, very badly, his daily wave to the fan, his daily recognition of their endless presence here of that court case had stopped. 1 or 2 days he barely managed to raise his hand. He appeared so frail, and that was picked up by the fans. They were very, very concerned about him as a result. They read his mood and they were concerned that he wasn't acknowledging them, but he had time to do that today. He's now going into the courtroom with his family. What will happen now, he will either go to a separate room that they have up on the second floor of Building G, which is a private area that he's able to talk to his attorneys in and that his family are with, or he will go straight into the court through the security. I think I'm just noticing he's going through the side door. That means that he's going upstairs to this private room with Thomas Mesereau, and this will be an area that his family can wait, because if not all of them are able to get into the court, we believe that they have 6 family passes, and I'm just noticing that there seems to be obviously a great deal more than 6 people there who've come out of these 3 or 4 vehicles. So it's likely that some of them may have to wait upstairs in that room for the verdict, while the handful that have the passes are able to go into the courtroom to sit with Michael Jackson to offer him support. And throughout this trial, his mum Catherine has been with him every single day. She's been an enormous source of strength for him. She is a woman who had 9 children, but Michael Jackson said that even as one of 9, she always made him feel like an only child. He always felt very, very special. She's been by his side. It's not been easy for her. We can just see, I think that could be LaToya Jackson going through the metal detector now to get into court. As I was saying, his mum Catherine has been there every day. She's found it very difficult. A lot of the evidence that we've heard, especially the evidence pertaining to the pornographic adult magazines that were found at Neverland, were very, very difficult to watch. It can't be easy for any mother to sit and watch these images come up time after time. The prosecution presented 80 different images to the court, some very, very explicit, of a pornographic magazine. She wept in court during that evidence. Also, though, his father Joseph, he's had a very difficult relationship with Joseph over the years. It's been well documented that Joseph was abusive to him when he was a child. He had a very strained relationship with his father. But over the years, and especially during the last year of this trial, they have been reconciled, and he apparently takes a great deal of strength from his father, who has offered him a great deal of support throughout this trial as well. Other members of his family who've been here throughout have been Jermaine Jackson. He's been one of the key family members who've been here. But also Janet Jackson, she appeared just a couple of times, and his other sisters and his other brothers also.
So I've got my IFB cranked up as high as it can go.
Jane, just a reminder of the procedure. You've gone through this procedure many a time, as the family have to. There's an airport-style security machine there to check about metal detecting machine. Members of the media certainly are then required to leave any kind of communications device, any kind of mobile phone in a tray outside the courtroom, and this is now a procedure that's familiar to the family members
too. It is.
too.
It's something that Michael Jackson and everybody who goes in or out of that court has to go through every day, even the attorneys. And what happens is they go through, you have to deposit your mobile phone. The attorneys are allowed to take their mobile phones with them, although they have to turn it off. You have to hand over your notebooks and your pens that you're taking with you into the court. They check your photographic ID that says you're an accredited member of the media. They check your secondary pass, which is a pass that shows that you actually have a pass to get into the courtroom itself. We can just see Michael Jackson now going through that metal detector. He's looking very pale, he's looking very frail. One can only imagine what must be going through his head at this point in time. He'll be thinking, hopefully this is the last time I've got to go through this, and I'll be coming out of this court in the next few minutes a free man. One can imagine that very, very, very difficult few moments for him. He looks absolutely exhausted, I have to say. His family have been saying that he's not been sleeping very well, he's not been eating, but he looks worse than he did during the last days of this trial. What then happens is that you go through the security gate, you are then checked by a security scanner by hand, you go into the courtroom and you take your assigned seat. There's followed a pattern every day, and the media have to go in first, then we wait for the legal teams, they come in, then Michael Jackson's family comes in. The first person who always comes through the door on his behalf is his mum, Catherine, and she always says hello to the whole court, and everybody turns around, everybody smiles, everyone says hello to Catherine, usually then followed by Joseph. Then Michael Jackson himself, the fans obviously very, very keen to see him. Then they all come in, they all take their places, and then Judge Melville then takes his seat, and then the jury will be brought in. So that's what's going to be happening over the next few minutes. Everyone's just going to be getting their seats. Judge Melville will be informed that Michael Jackson has arrived and that he's ready and that he's in the courtroom. Then the jury will be notified. They'll be brought in. The judge will have a communication with them, ask them if they've reached their verdict, if they're able to have reached a decision on all of the 10 counts. If they've reached unanimous decisions on all the 10 counts, there'll probably be a sort of 10-15 minute delay while they say that. If they haven't, they will have to talk about the hung jury counts first, so that could possibly delay the verdict for a further 30 minutes to 40 minutes. So that's the sort of time frame we're expecting, and as you say, the verdicts themselves will be read on an audio feed that we'll be able to hear outside the court by court clerk Lorna Fry. She's been in the court every day throughout this trial. She also is part of our familiar routine. She tells us all every morning that we're not allowed to have our phones on, that we have to refrain from chewing gum, that we have to act sensibly, that there's to be no outbursts, that if anybody tries to move or make an approach towards Mr. Jackson, that they will be ejected. So she's been a very familiar part of the trial to us, who've covered it on a daily basis, who've gone in there and seen her every day. But it will be her voice that you will eventually hear on this audio feed that will be broadcast from the court as these verdicts are reached.
Very shortly, the doors to the courtroom will close on the cameras looking inside, sealing the activities from the outside world in all but that audio feed Jane was talking about. Michael Jackson's fate is already sealed. His peers, 12 of them, 8 women, 4 men, have deliberated on and off for 7 days, some 33 hours, on the charges that he faces, and we await their deliberations. It's just 1:52 according to the courtroom clock. That's the local time in the USA. It's a little later than that according to my watch, about 9:55 in the UK, or just coming up to that, but no matter. That is the scene then around the courtroom and the legal niceties that will have to be played out. I suppose we'll now take a few moments, as Jane was suggesting. And as we await this verdict and the first sign of any audio, Jane, I guess this case really comes down, and this is maybe what the jury have had some time to deliberate, is who do you believe? Do you believe the testimony of the young man at the centre of this case, who appears to change his story, but then on a videotape tells a very powerful tale of how he was abused? And essentially, that is what these 12 people have had to decide. Do we believe him, or do we believe Michael Jackson?
It is, Martin, and this is something that is very frequent in child abuse cases, that it's essentially one person's word against another. I can just tell you, we're hearing from the court that everyone is seated except the judge and the jury. They've been told to be silent, so that's how it's going inside the court. And it does come down to credibility, as you say. Who are these people making these allegations against Michael Jackson? Well, the Arvizo family are a family from East Los Angeles. It was back in 2000 2000, I suppose, that the seeds of this case were sown. They lived in a very small one-bedroomed apartment in East Soto Street, which is in a rather rundown area of East Los Angeles. I've been to that apartment myself. I've seen inside it. It is a tiny room divided by one curtain that the whole 5 members of the Arvizo family slept in: Mother Janet, Father David, and the children Star, Davalyn, and Gavin. Now, it's a huge leap from the lifestyle that they had then to the lifestyle that they had in 2003, when they were spending a lot of time at Neverland, when Michael Jackson was paying for the Mother Janet to go to the beauty parlour, when the children were having dental treatment courtesy of Michael Jackson, when they were being put up in plush hotels, and when they were being flown all over the world. Their journey from East Los Angeles to Neverland was a long one. It started when the children took part in something called the Laugh Factory, and it's a club in Los Angeles. It's a comedy club. Gavin especially was showing promise as a performer. Janet Arvizo, his mother, was keen to encourage her children to do what they wanted to do. They went to the Laugh Factory. They started taking part in comedy camps, and a number of famous people, famous comedians, came to the camp to teach the kids, to help them. It was children who came from disadvantaged backgrounds, from poorer areas of East Los Angeles. And it was a couple of years later when Gavin was diagnosed with cancer. He had a 16-pound tumour removed at the Kaiser Hospital in Los Angeles, that the family again started calling on these people who've become their friends through the Laugh Factory. And it was through these people that contact was eventually made with Michael Jackson. This was because Gavin Arvizo was a huge fan of Michael Jackson, as are the hundreds who are outside this courtroom now as we stand waiting for this verdict. He wanted to speak to his hero. Calls were put out, and lo and behold, Michael Jackson phoned the hospital room where Gavin Arvizo was. They had a short conversation, and he was invited to come to Neverland. So he did that. He went to Neverland. They had a great time. The whole family went. And then there was a bit of a pause in the story up to 2002, 2003, and this was when the Martin Bashir documentary was filmed. In the interim, Gavin had got better. His family said that this was partly as a result of Michael Jackson, that being around Michael Jackson, going to Neverland, had all been part of his recovery. So as a result, he was called back to Neverland by Michael Jackson because he thought it would make a good story when Martin Bashir was coming to Neverland to film this documentary. Have this little boy sitting by my side who says, I got better because of Michael Jackson. So the family were brought in, the Bashir documentary was filmed, but after it was brought
You're watching pictures now from outside the court in Santa Maria, where we are about to learn whether Michael Jackson is to be convicted as a sex offender, a conspirator in a plot to detain a family against their will, and perhaps guilty of plying a young person with alcohol with an intent to molest them. These, in summary, are the charges that Michael Jackson faces. And after 14 weeks, we've come to this moment. About an hour ago, the word went out from the court. The jury has reached its verdict that Michael Jackson must now return to this court building, and that he must face those jurors and hear from them the conclusions that they have drawn as to his guilt or his innocence. You're watching Sky News at 10 o'clock. Welcome to viewers in Ireland who are not seeing their regular programme tonight, because we're broadcasting live from Santa Maria in California. Michael Jackson has been called back to this courthouse to hear his fate. He's charged with 10 counts of conspiracy, of molesting a young man, of plying a young man with alcohol with an intent to molest him. And this is the video that you saw if you were with us just a few moments ago, of Michael Jackson making the journey from Neverland Ranch, and from taking his journey by car into this courtroom, as he was required to do by law, to hear exactly what the jury have decided as to whether he is guilty or innocent. And those were the shots that you saw of Michael Jackson arriving at the courtroom. He was, as he has been so many occasions, with the familiar spectacles in place, looking drawn, looking tired, but on this occasion, as on previous occasions, with the full support of his family. LaToya Jackson was there. His mother and his father were in court, are going to be in court, and have moved through the court building over the last few minutes and into the courtroom where this trial has been heard. The jurors have deliberated for some 7 days in total, not full days, some 33 hours spread across those 7 days. They went out first Friday week ago to spend a couple of hours in the afternoon. No decision then. So it was all last week. Each day they came here. 8:30 in the morning they started their deliberations. They worked until 2:30 in the afternoon. Of their conversations, we knew very little, save on Monday they did pose one question to a judge, which we understand now was purely administrative, probably relating to the fact that on Thursday afternoon they took the afternoon off, some of them or several of them wanting to attend graduation ceremonies in local schools. They then worked through Tuesday, through Wednesday, that half day on Thursday I've mentioned, and all through last Friday, as speculation mounted, as it had done every day outside the courtroom. What did this mean? Did the length of time they were taking mean that it was more likely of an acquittal, that the balance of probabilities had gone in Michael Jackson's favour, that they simply did not believe the testimony of those who came to this court and bore witness accusing Jackson of these crimes? Or did it mean that they were examining the case in such detail and were perhaps persuading one another of the veracity of the prosecution's argument? Was that what was going on? Today, we heard further reports that on Friday there had been further contact between the jury and the judge, clarifying some points, asking apparently for some testimony to be read back. Whether that in itself was crucial to changing the mind of jurors, or a number of jurors who may have been of one persuasion or another, no doubt we will find out in the hour to come. Here in California, the jurors, of course, allowed to come and speak to the media, if they so wish, after a case like this. Was it that then that there was bringing them that made the decision? And then this morning we heard more deliberations that were going on and exchanges between the jurors and the court. More testimony was being read back. Let's go back to my colleague Jane Secker, who's also standing as we are, awaiting the outcome of this case. Jane?
A few gremlins in the sound works we've had down here, Martin, but I can tell you that we are hearing that verdicts have been reached on all counts. So that's significant because it means that there isn't a hung jury on any of these counts. All 12 members of these jury, all 8 women and 4 men, have managed to reach a decision on every single one of these counts. So we should be getting the verdict hopefully within the next 10 to 15 minutes. There shouldn't be the enormous delay that we thought there would be if any of these counts were hung jury counts. There are 9 sheriff's deputies in the court. Everyone now all sitting. They've been asked by the judge if they've reached a verdict, and they've said that they have. So we're now just waiting to hear from that audio feed as soon as we possibly can on all of these 10 charges facing Michael Jackson. He's, of course, in the court, as are his family, as are the world's press, as are members of the public, all desperately waiting for this verdict. The judge we're hearing is now in. He's now taken his place in the court. We are waiting to hear whether the jury themselves are now in. But as I've just said, verdicts have been reached on all counts, apparently. So we're not going to get a hung jury. We're going to get a decision one way or the other within the next few minutes as to whether Michael Jackson walks free or whether he goes to prison.
Beyond reasonable doubt, the standard. This was cited many times. It was cited by Michael Jackson's friend, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was here in this part of California for several days last week, speaking to the media on many occasions and saying that if Michael Jackson believed that if beyond reasonable doubt was the standard, if that was the criteria, then he believed he would be found.
When they were deliberating, and certainly
he was saying that he was actually innocent, or whether he was just invoking the beyond reasonable doubt as a test, in this case a rubric by which the jury would have to decide. I guess we'll have to talk to Jesse Jackson perhaps in the aftermath of this about that. But that's what he was certainly speaking on behalf of Michael Jackson. Count 1 that he faces, and in my summary and précis of these charges that Michael Jackson was facing, I omitted the fact there is a very tight time frame involved here. The count 1 is about conspiracy, and this is what we will hear first when we get our audio feed. We're standing by for any moment. Conspiracy to commit child abduction, false imprisonment and extortion. And this conspiracy happened between the 1st of February and the 31st of March 2003. Then they move on to a series of counts that Michael Jackson performed a lewd act upon a child. Again, there's a time frame involved here. It was the 20th of February to the 12th of March 2003. And that is the time frame that is cited in each of the 4 counts of a lewd act upon a child. And we'll hear the jury's verdict on those count number 2, 3, 4 and 5 very shortly. The same time frame is applied to count 6. That's an attempt to commit a lewd act upon a child. And that is because, according to the testimony of the witness in the case, it was an attempted act of molestation rather than the act of molestation itself. Counts 7, 8, 9 and 10 are all to do with alcohol. And Michael Jackson, according to testimony we heard in court, calling alcoholic beverages Jesus juice, putting them in a Coke can. He often preferred to drink out of soda cans or pop cans, even if he was drinking wine. In some way, that apparently is a preference of his, that he preferred to do it. He wouldn't be seen drinking the alcoholic beverage. He'd prefer to disguise it by putting it in the soda can. And it is again within these time frame of the 20th of February to the 12th of March 2003 that he stands accused of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony, the felony being child molestation. So that is on count 7, 8, 9 and 10. And it could be that whatever the decision we're about to hear from this jury, that questions will remain about Michael Jackson's behaviour, about his habits, about his lifestyle, about his habitual invitation to young children to stay at Neverland, the fact that they shared his bed. That will be for others to judge and perhaps for others to speak about as to whether that behaviour is acceptable or should be criticised. But under the law, he stands accused of those 10 counts about we've just been discussing and laying out, and he stands accused of these things on that very tight time frame. And it could be that whatever the opinion of the jury might be about what else they've heard about Michael Jackson, and of course the judge instructed them to put anything else they might have considered, read, seen about Michael Jackson out of their mind. Just focus on the information they are given, the argument, the debate, the testimony, the questions they are listening to in court, he said to them right at the beginning of this trial. Focus on that and make your minds up about the prosecution's case on that information you get in court alone. And that, I guess, Jane Secker, is something we know quite a bit, don't we, about these jurors, and it's something that in some of their cases you can believe is perfectly credible. Some of them saying they don't follow pop music, they don't follow the entertainment charts, they don't watch that kind of, they don't read that kind of tabloid newspaper. But it says, I suppose in many cases it perhaps stretches the credibility that they could put behind them or to one side all previous opinions, all previous information they may have gathered over their lifetime about Michael Jackson in order to perform their task today.
It is astonishing to think that they will have done that, but that was why they were questioned at the very beginning of this trial. That's why they were asked what they knew about the singer, if they'd ever been to Neverland, and if they were able to put those kind of bits of information away when they came and sat in this jury room. They haven't been sequestered by the judge, so they haven't been kept separately from the media. They haven't been kept in a hotel room, for example. They haven't been allowed to go home in the evening, which again, in a trial of this nature, this scale that has been wall to wall on most of the American networks over the last few days, it's astonishing to believe that they may have gone home and not watched any television at all, not talked to any members of their family or their friends about it, or not read even newspapers about it. You think even if they'd driven around town, they may have seen some newspaper headlines screaming out at them from newsstands about the trial, but they've been told to put all those things from their mind. The judge said that they had to just listen to the evidence, judge him on the evidence they heard and nothing else. There was a lot of circumstantial evidence in this trial, no real forensic evidence, which again some say could have made their decision very, very difficult. There was nothing that was really black and white for these jurors that they could look at and say, yes, this definitely shows that this man is a child abuser or not, or that this man definitely gave these children alcohol or not. They were told to use their common sense by the judge. Now, using their common sense is something that the prosecution also pointed to in their closing arguments of this trial. Ron Zonen gave a very strong, very comprehensive closing argument, and in it he said to the jurors that if Michael Jackson was not Michael Jackson, if he wasn't a pop superstar, superstar living in a multi-million-dollar ranch, if he was the man who lived next door and he was spending a lot of time in bed with young children to whom he wasn't related to, that alarm bells would have rung and that they would have called the police within seconds, and treated the jury members, many of whom who have children, and said to them, you know, if this was something that you'd experienced, this is what you would do. On the other hand, for the defence, Thomas Mesereau, he too gave a very, very strong closing argument. Both of these attorneys talking without notes, excuse me, and during his closing, he pointed to this area of reasonable doubt that you were alluding to earlier, Martin, and he said that if they had any reasonable doubt about a single bit of the testimony from the Arvizo family, this family making the allegations against Michael Jackson, that they had to throw out all the charges, that they couldn't find Michael Jackson guilty on any of these charges if they thought that the Arvizos had lied about anything in this court. And of course the Arvizos, especially Janet Arvizo, the mother of the boy making the allegations, has been shown to have lied in the past. She's been shown to have committed welfare fraud. She was involved in a court case against J.C. Penney where she said that the bruising that she'd sustained from a security guard was actually inflicted by her husband. It was revealed at a later date, and it was also shown that she'd instructed her children to lie in a court case involving custody of the children against their father. So very, very difficult, a lot of evidence for the jury to consider. We're now just waiting desperately for that verdict.
Jane, let's just consider for a moment the two ifs and buts here. As you were saying to us, we're going to get a decision one way or the other. Now, acquittal, and the fans outside the court will go, one would imagine, completely ecstatic with their delight about that. Conviction, and we understand, depending on a series of legal arguments and debates about whether or not Michael Jackson can stay on bail pending sentence or not, but it could be, could it not, that if he is found guilty of these charges he faces today, he could be escorted by the police straight to jail this afternoon?
He absolutely could be, Martin. As you say, if he's acquitted, I don't think he'll stay in that court for very long. There will have to be some legal discussion. They will have to talk about things like Michael Jackson getting back some of the evidence that was used during this case. A lot of the items were taken from Neverland. He understandably wants those back. His defence team will also talk about how to get the $3 million bail money that he's given this court back. But I don't think he'll waste any time in coming out and giving a statement. He's scheduled to make...
Here we go, Jane.
Clerk, read the
This is the audio feed from the court.
Superior Court of the State of California for the County of Santa Barbara, Santa Maria Division, the people of the State of California, plaintiff versus Michael Joe Jackson, defendant, case number 1133603, count 1, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of conspiracy as charged in count 1 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 2, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 2 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 3, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 3 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 4, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 4 of the indictment, dated June 10th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 5, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 5 of the indictment, dated June 10th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 6, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of attempting to commit a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 6 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80.
There are only
Count
the
7,
counts
verdict.
now remaining.
We, the jury, in the above
concerning
entitled
alcohol.
case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony as charged in count 7 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 7 verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21, a lesser included offense of that charge in count 7 of the indictment, dated June 13, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 8, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony as charged in count 8 of the indictment, dated June 13, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 8 verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21, a lesser included offense that charged in count 8 of the indictment, dated June 13, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 9 verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony as charged in count 9 of the indictment, dated June 10, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 9 verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21, a lesser included offense of that charge in count 9 of the indictment, dated June 10, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 10, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony as charged in count 10 of the indictment, dated June 10, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 10 verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21, a lesser included offense of that charge in count 10 of the indictment, dated June 10, 2005, foreperson number 80.
That completes the reading of the verdicts. I'm now going to go off the air.
And with that, the audio feed from the court is cut. Michael Jackson is a free man. He is acquitted on every count. Jane Secker.
This is the end of the nightmare for Michael Jackson. There have been rumours surrounding his relationship with young boys for the last 10 years. Throughout it all, he has protested his innocence. His fans have protested his innocence. He is going to walk away from this court vindicated, as he always said he would. This must have been the most hideous ordeal for Michael Jackson over the last 4 months, over the last 2 years since these allegations began. But he's been vindicated of all charges in this court. The jurors have taken 7 days to find him not guilty of all 10 charges, as well as the 10 lesser charges of giving alcohol to a minor. As you said, this came down to whose word this jury believed. Did they believe the word of Michael Jackson? Did they believe the words of Gavin Arvizo? It appears that they believed the words of Michael Jackson, even though the singer never took the witness stand.
Yes, very much so. And
the cheers rang out amongst the supporters as they listened on their portable radios. As each verdict came out, they cheered louder and louder. First of all, the conspiracy to commit child abduction and false imprisonment and extortion. Not guilty, said the court. The crowd cheered loud and long in the street outside. The serious charges of child molestation, 4 counts in all, and an attempted molestation count was read out in the court. Michael Jackson acquitted on all of them. The offence of administrating alcohol to a minor with an intent to commit a felony, in this case child molestation. The clerk of the court, Laura Fry, moved on to repeat the words, "We, the jury, find Michael Jackson not guilty." And even the lesser offence of a misdemeanor, which the judge had clarified they could choose to charge Michael Jackson with and judge on his behaviour, they found him not guilty. It's a clean sheet. Michael Jackson is a free man, and once the legal niceties have been dealt with inside the court, we would expect him to emerge from this building to thank his fans to thank his family, to thank those lawyers led by Thomas Mesereau who have brought this conclusion after 7 days and nearly 33 hours of deliberation. We await anything moving inside the court. We got that shot of the door when Judge Melville has finished his summing up his administrative tasks with the court. We see those pictures, and we do expect that our colleague Ian Dovaston, who's been in court for that momentous decision, will be allowed to leave very soon, and we'll be able to hear what he has to say of a description of the moment inside the court. I can see one of the SUVs being brought up, reversed into position inside the court compound. Jane Secker's just feet away from that. Jane, it appears they're going to make a speedy exit in the cars Michael Jackson arrived in not half an hour ago.
Well, they have brought those SUVs up. We know that Michael Jackson is scheduled to make a statement after this verdict. I can tell you some of the information that we're getting from the court is that Michael Jackson was seen to be wiping his face with his hands with a tissue inside the court. There has been a little bit of movement. 1 or 2 security guards have come out of that court, but there is lockdown in that courtroom at the moment. This has been such an ordeal for him and for his family, who've been here every single day throughout this trial. The SUVs have pulled up, but I wonder if that's just so that if he chooses to make a quick getaway, he can do. I think he's going to be keen to milk this for all it's worth. He's going to want to show the world that he's innocent, that he's been cleared of all of these charges, but he's a very frail man. He's been through an enormous amount in the last 4 months. You think he may just also want a bit of private time. He may want a bit of quiet time with his family. They're all inside the court at the moment, waiting to hear what is happening next. We're hearing that the judge has read out a statement to the jury. This statement says that their decision is a testament to the justice system. He's asked them to be allowed to return to their lives as anonymously as they came. There is a press conference scheduled with jury members if they choose to take part in that after this verdict. We don't know whether they'll want to do that or not, but they're being offered the option if they want to come and speak to the world's media about what it's been like being in that court every day, as we have been hearing all of that evidence and what went on inside that jury room. What was it that made them believe the word of Michael Jackson over the word of Gavin Arvizo, this boy who was just 13 when he went to the police? We saw the video. It was the last thing that the jurors were shown before they went off to see their deliberations. It was a video of a 13-year-old Gavin Arvizo telling his tale to the police. He was nervous, he was uncomfortable, he was sitting with his hands in his lap, he looked embarrassed. He was a 13-year-old boy talking about how his friend, who was in his 40s, had abused him. It was very, very difficult footage to watch, but despite the strength of that footage and despite his testimony in the court, he's 15 now, he came across slightly more aggressively perhaps in his testimony in the court, but despite both of those things, the jurors have chosen to believe the word of Michael Jackson. I think a lot of people will be saying that this could possibly also be because of the mother, Janet Arvizo. She was shown to this court to be a serial liar. She was shown to have committed welfare fraud. She was shown to have lied in a previous court case. She was shown to have schooled her children to lie. And many felt that that reflected very, very badly on the young boy making these allegations. Michael Jackson himself, of course, never took that witness stand, but again, we saw his testimony in a video. And this was a video that was filmed during the outtakes of the Martin Bashir documentary, which prompted this whole case. And in that video, he spoke of his innocent love for children, how he could never dream of harming a child. He has always maintained that he himself didn't really have a childhood. He started in the Jackson 5. He was pushed into it by his family when he was only 5 himself. He didn't really have normal schooling. He grew up on the stage. He grew up living in bizarre places. He spent a period of time living in Diana Ross's house when he was just 11. And he says because of this, he never had a childhood. He's recreated Neverland as a place that he can behave like a child. And that is why he says he enjoys spending so much time with children. And we're just seeing some footage of a stretcher, a gurney being carried outside, the fans outside. We think it may be one of the fans who's perhaps collapsed. It's a very, very hot day here in Santa Maria. It's around 2:30 in the afternoon, about the hottest point in the afternoon. There are obviously a great deal of strong feelings from these fans who've been here, never doubted his innocence throughout it, not a single one of them. They said that this was a case about a family trying to manipulate Michael Jackson. They said it was also a case about racism, about a vendetta against the singer. They say that he is the Peter Pan of pop who has simply been misunderstood, and people don't understand him. He might be a little odd, he might like to spend time with children, which is a very odd thing perhaps for a 46-year-old man to do, but they say that doesn't make him a paedophile, and that is a decision that the jury here have concurred with.
You're watching a special edition of Sky News at 10, broadcast both throughout the UK and throughout Ireland tonight, as we bring you the news that the doors are opening in the courthouse, and through the courtroom doors come members who've been allowed to attend from the public, from the media, and later from Michael Jackson's family. They will be allowed to come through, perhaps take a moment to rest in another room, to consult one another. From the point of view of the defence, of course, in this case, to congratulate one another for a case won. On every count that Michael Jackson faced, he's been found not guilty. That is our main and breaking news here on Sky News tonight, direct from California. You're watching pictures of members who went into the court to hear the account of the jury read out, now being allowed to leave, and they will have their stories to tell shortly of the demeanour of Michael Jackson as the first of those verdicts was read out, how it might have changed as the most serious charge, charge number 2, that of molesting a young boy, was read out and the decision was not guilty. Out here, outside the courtroom, the cries and cheers became louder and louder with each finding of the jury that Michael Jackson himself, the first time we've seen him since being acquitted on these charges, just walking through the court, not an emotion on his face. He still looks rather blank, composed. One can only imagine what roller coaster of emotions he may well have been going through in the moment before those verdicts came through. Ian Doveston was in the court. This is his account. We're on pictures of Michael Jackson waving to the crowd, walking out, and the crescendo grows from his fans. Well, there is to be no press conference. Michael Jackson and his family members, with a thank you, a touch on the shoulder, a shake of the hand, says one final grateful thanks to his defence team, and straight into the SUV. These black vehicles that have borne him to and from this court these last 4 months. A pat on the back from Thomas Mesereau. And the Jackson car is leaving court. He's a free man. The crowd surge on the street to watch the car leave.
Justice was done. The man's innocent. He always
Well, in the end, he was only here for 45 minutes, but a momentous 45 minutes in Michael Jackson's life.
Hello.
Some of the fans here can't believe this. They've waited, many of them, through day in, day out, throughout the testimony, throughout this long 7 days of the jury deliberating, and they cannot quite believe that now it's all over.
House Santa Maria, 10.
Here's Ian
9,
Dovaston.
8.
He's going to tell us now what it was like inside the courtroom
4,
as those decisions
3,
came through. Let's join Ian Dovaston.
1. I've just heard Judge Rodney Melville say to a court, his last words to a court as he left from the door that's been to his left all of the time. He said to Mr. Jackson, Michael Jackson, he said, "Mr. Jackson, your bail is exonerated and you are released." Words that will be played, I'm sure, on countless occasions from now forevermore, I would imagine. It was an incredibly dramatic time in court. Let me tell you how it happened. Before the verdict, we were treated to almost, perhaps in the region of 10 minutes, of the judge going through brown envelopes, tearing them open and seeing what the verdicts were inside. So at that stage, the secret was shared by the 12 members of the jury, 8 women and 4 men who've made this decision, and the judge in court. He spent an awful lot of time talking to the jury after those verdicts had been released, and that was his one statement at the end. He gave this statement, "Mr. Jackson, your bail is exonerated and you are released." That is the one thing that he said to Michael Jackson right at the end of this. And let me tell you, while these verdicts were coming out, there were tears from Catherine Jackson. Tito Jackson, to her left, her son, had his arm around Catherine Jackson. There were tears in Tito's eyes. In front of her, Randy Jackson, to the front right of the seating of the family, he had his hand over the back of the seat and was touching Catherine Jackson's knee, the mother. She was clearly very, very emotional. She was emotional from the moment that she came in. There was a tear in her eye as she walked into court. Michael Jackson, throughout all of this, was sat still. He was effectively motionless. Sorry, I'm being moved forward by the police, but I'm sure they'll allow me to broadcast from here. Thank you, thank you. So we've seen these incredibly dramatic scenes in court, and also let me tell you, the jury itself has clearly taken this very, very seriously indeed. 3 members of the jury I saw in tears as these verdicts were read, and as I say, Michael Jackson spent all of it looking completely motionless and just looking bolt forward as these incredibly dramatic verdicts were delivered.
Ian Dovaston with the first account of what it was like to be inside that court. We'll get him to tell that story again for you in a few moments' time. We're watching live pictures now of the Jackson motorcade. It only came here less than an hour ago, but it's now on its way back to Neverland, and their leader, their master, Michael Jackson, is a free man. Jane Secker.
Down here in the court precincts where we've been for the last 4 months, I'm joined by Steve Corbett from the Santa Maria Times, a senior columnist we've been speaking to throughout this trial. Steve, what's your reaction to this verdict?
It was a stunning moment in court. I'm stunned. Michael Jackson has done no wrong. Michael Jackson has been acquitted by the American judicial system, and I'm frankly stunned that all 12 jurors agreed unanimously that Michael Jackson committed no crime.
Why is that? Did you have an inkling that you thought that he may be found guilty of these charges?
I was surprised with a full acquittal. I believed that the jurors would hang up, they would split down the middle on a number of the charges. As I've said many times, I believe the prosecution made a good case for a number of the charges. However, acquittal on all charges. Michael Jackson, free man, not guilty. I'm surprised.
Where do you think this leaves him now?
Michael Jackson can do whatever he wants to do, pretty much what Michael Jackson has always done. Michael Jackson can utilize his freedom, and Michael Jackson can go on with his music career. He can take care of his personal housekeeping. He can raise his children. Michael Jackson can do whatever he wants to do in this land of the free.
What do you think it was that won this case for Thomas Mesereau?
The jurors apparently believed, and they will speak to this, I'm sure. The jurors apparently believed that Michael Jackson was victimized by this awful, horrific family that set out to destroy his reputation, to take his money, to set the justice system on its ear. The jurors apparently believed that this was a family of evil hustlers, and they bought Tom Mesereau's defense completely.
Do you think it was the mother? Do you think it was Janet Arvizo that really sealed their fate? Because she made very damaging witness in the witness stand, didn't she?
These jurors didn't believe anybody, apparently. These jurors didn't believe the alleged victim. They didn't believe the mother. They didn't believe the alleged victim's brother and sister. Didn't believe all the people who worked at Neverland. Did not believe the young man who came in here to talk about what Jackson did to him when he was a child. Did not believe anything other than the fact that Michael Jackson is in fact Peter Pan, and Neverland is this wondrous, joyous place where children can be taken into his bed with complete innocence and no worry about being damaged or harmed.
But as well as these boys who said that Michael Jackson abused them, the defence brought 2 boys who the prosecution alleged Michael Jackson had abused, but they got up, they stood in this court, and they said, no, he never abused us. Their testimony was incredibly powerful, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The jurors believed them as well. The jurors believed every aspect of the defense. The jurors bought it. Whether the jurors say that they debated and had horrific, troublesome times debating it, final result, see you later, Michael. Go home. Be whatever you want to be.
So he's on his way back to Neverland. Goodness knows what the atmosphere is going to be like in that car there now. Just driving down the highway, we can see it going down there. He's been supported by his family throughout. How do you think they've taken this news?
It was an odd scene in the courtroom. I was sitting directly behind Katherine Jackson, directly behind Joe Jackson, directly behind Tito Jackson. In front, LaToya sat, Randy sat, Rebby sat. Michael Jackson, for the most part, remained motionless throughout this reading of the most emotional moment in his entire existence. And his family, although there was a tear here and a rub shoulder there and an embrace, by and large, the emotion did not erupt, although everyone had been cautioned by the judge that there would be no overt displays of emotion. There wasn't the emotion that I would have felt would have come. There wasn't the great relief that I would have expected. There wasn't this movement of bodies looking, reaching, touching each other that I would have expected at a moment this severe. But people react in their own ways.
And no press conference outside, as we thought that he was going to come out and read a statement, but he's just gone straight home.
He looked stunned, he looked grave on the way in, and he looked grave on the way out. This man has a lot of thinking to do, a lot of soul searching, because even though he walked away from this courthouse a free man, his lifestyle has been painted in bleak, horrific, dark terms. This is a man who lives his life in ways that run contrary to the way people live their lives in the United States, in the UK, throughout Europe. Basically what he does, that the jurors believed was okay, is not okay in most social circles. Michael Jackson has to decide first and foremost if he's going to be welcoming little boys into his bed once again. And he might, because he's free to do just that, and the jurors said that's not a problem.
Steve Corbett, thanks very much. I'm also joined by Ian Dovison, who was sitting in another part of the court just along from Steve. What did you see of emotional reaction from Michael Jackson with these verdicts?
I'm just listening to Steve there, and he's got it absolutely right. As we looked at the back of Jackson, and me and Steve were probably about 5 yards from behind him, he was completely motionless as he sat and looked forward. When he came into court, he sat down in his normal chair. He didn't have much to say to Thomas Mesereau. Only when all of those verdicts had come through did he allow a small amount of emotion to take over. I saw him with a tissue as I walked out. He looked, his chin was shaking, as you would just before you cry, but he wasn't crying. He'd got hold of Thomas Mesereau, and Mesereau got hold of him. There was a huddle of the two of them. The family too, Steve's right. They were just sat in front of us, immediately in front of us. Katherine Jackson had a tear in her eye when she came in. But as those verdicts were read out, we didn't see any great emotion at that stage. We had Tito to her left with an arm around her to console her. In front we had Randy in the front right-hand corner, who extended a hand and put it on Katherine's knee during the reading of these verdicts as they went. Where I did see tears, where I did see emotion, was in the jury. 3 of them broke down in tears as this verdict came out. That's a sign to me of just how seriously they've taken it, and just how they knew that the eyes of the world were on them. And by the way, there was a statement from the jury through the judge that said that they hoped, I haven't got it completely down, but that they hoped that they would be able to return to a world of anonymity from which they came. So an idea there that they might be unhappy about speaking, but the judge actually then encouraged them to speak to the media. It was a system he believed in. However, The big thing for me, Jane, if I can just add this to it, I know I'm going on, but it's an incredibly dramatic appearance and dramatic thing to see. At the end of this, the judge did not look at Michael Jackson throughout this. He looked at the jury, he told the jury what a good job they'd done, he read a jury statement, he talked about jury instructions, he allowed them to leave. He said one thing as almost as he disappeared through the door in the corner of court, and that was this. He said, "Mr. Jackson, your bail is exonerated and you are released." He said it. He said it almost as he stood up. I imagined that he would turn to Michael Jackson after he'd spoken to the jury, and he would say something about the case. He would say something about Michael Jackson. He would say something to add to what the jury's not guilty verdicts. He didn't say a word.
It's almost an afterthought.
Yes. And that I don't know about, well, let's ask the other members of the media, let's ask the other legal analysts, but I took that as a little bit of a terse statement at the end, and he disappeared out of court. What that means, I don't know, but I think we should ask other people what their opinion is on that.
That convoy is still returning on its way back to Neverland after only 45 minutes here at the court, but just returning to those members of the jury. It's not surprising perhaps they've been emotional, because this has been a huge part of their lives. The biggest thing that will happen in many of their lives, one would imagine, but it's also been long. It's been 4 months. What have you noticed about the jury over that time in terms of how much attention they've paid to the evidence, how they've reacted to different witnesses?
I think they've been extraordinary. Remember that this was 4 months since the jury was selected, then the trial itself was 3 months. They've listened to 140 witnesses, 600 pieces of evidence, all that kind of thing, all the statistics we already know. They've sat through it, not one of them in all of that time has rung in and said, "Sorry, I've got a call today, I can't come in." Not one of them. Half of them, 6 of them, I would say, were taking copious notes. And by the way, the alternate jurors were in court as well, all 8 of them. So that gives you an idea. I think they didn't have to come back here. Of course, they would be interested in it, but they came and sat in the public gallery and watched as these verdicts were given out. I think an extraordinary jury has been chosen here. That have concentrated, have been utterly focused right the way through this, have taken notes, have taken the time to deliberate properly. I don't think anybody could have a single complaint about this jury. And as I've watched, I think they've kept full focus on it. There have been boring moments in this trial, going through telephone registers and that kind of thing. And I think they've just concentrated with immense integrity, and the judge used the word integrity in his summing up to the jury.
Just returning to Steve Corbett, who's with us, Steve Corbett, columnist for the Santa Maria Times. Steve, do you feel that justice has been done today?
The system is designed to work the way we've seen it work. The case is presented, the evidence is viewed, the jurors deliberate, and then they render their decision. If that's justice, justice indeed has been served.
And Michael Jackson continues on his way back to Neverland. What do you think is going to happen to him now? There have been some people said that he's going to maybe throw open the gates of Neverland. He's going to allow the fans in. Do you think we're going to see such behaviour from Michael Jackson, or do you think he's going to go there, shut the doors, and keep the world out for a long period of time?
Michael Jackson can do whatever he wants to do. He's been the unpredictable force throughout his career, throughout his life. Whatever he does, nothing will surprise me. I was surprised more than anything with the decision here, that all these people agreed. And for people throughout the world who heard about Santa Maria as this conservative Bible Belt place, apparently it isn't nearly as conservative as you may think, because the jurors saw all Michael's pornography. The jurors heard about Michael's severe drinking. The jurors knew about Michael weeping and crying and begging to sleep with a young boy many years ago, and they heard about him taking children into his bed now. Michael Jackson can do whatever he damn well pleases.
Just returning to Ian Doveston, who was also in court listening to that verdict. Ian, you've watched Michael Jackson over these last months. He looked very gaunt today. He looked very bad during the end of the trial, but it doesn't seem that the last 7 days of these deliberations has brought him any solace. He looked absolutely dreadful, didn't he?
He did look dreadful. He looks he looks painfully thin. He looks like a man who simply hasn't been eating properly. I know that his publicist has said otherwise. She's been sacked. I don't know where those messages are coming from, and we can't read, I guess, a great deal into them other than the normal publicists speak. But he looks absolutely dreadful. As he was coming in on the final days of trial, you saw Michael Jackson. He was walking very, very slowly indeed. He could barely raise a hand to the fans behind him. We've looked at pictures countless times of when this trial began, when we thought he was frail then. If you look at the comparison between now and then, actually, he looks fairly healthy at the beginning of this trial by comparison. He's got an awful lot of work to do to build himself back up. He looked, when he was motionless in court, you'd almost, I mean, I hesitate, but you'd almost use the description sedated. I mean, he was utterly motionless, and I hesitate to say that because we don't know that's the case. But if you did sedate somebody, they would sit like that. It was motionless. It didn't seem to be to do with a back problem as he walked in. He didn't seem to have an aching back, a hurting back. He sat there, he looked bolt forward, and it just washed over him. And he seemed just bewildered as we sat looking at him from behind. If I can tell you as well, Jane, the build-up to this was extraordinary. As the jury came in, it was like a sort of gale blew through the court. There was a silence, and it just froze you to the spot as this drama built up. And what I didn't realise was going to happen was that the judge would get 10 brown envelopes, and he would look through them before we all found out what the verdicts were. It was just extraordinary drama. The jury sat there, they know the verdicts. The judge is beginning to learn the verdicts, and everybody else in the court, including, of course, Michael Jackson, doesn't know anything. And all we heard for probably about 8 or 10 minutes, I counted, was the slip of the brown envelope. He'd pull the form out, and he would learn the verdicts one by one. And meanwhile, we sat back at the court, Steve and I together, just thinking, what on earth is these verdicts, and what on earth is, if it's nerve-wracking for us, what on earth is this doing to Michael Jackson?
Now, Ian, throughout, you've been talking to the fans an awful lot. You won't know this because you were inside, but outside, the second that verdict went through, the huge roar came from the crowd for every single of the 10 counts and the 4 misdemeanors. Huge cheers. Just very briefly, how do you think that the fans are now going to react to this?
Well, when I was coming out of court, Jane, let me tell you, they held themselves together, didn't they, Steve, outside of inside court. They were acted with, I have to say, utter dignity and respect for that courtroom. When they came in, they were in tears, but when they came out, they were screaming, just like they were outside.
Ian Dovison and Steve Corbett, thanks very much. I'll hand you now back to Martin, who's on the roof overlooking the courtroom, to hear firsthand from one fan's reaction to this verdict.
Yes, thanks, Jane. Annika Katecha has been talking to us on Sky News at regular intervals during this trial. We spoke to her only the other day about this rather long period of time. Annika, your every wish, you were convinced from the outset that Michael was innocent, and so it's proven.
Absolutely. Jury of his peers, no one can argue with it. You know, this is what everyone's been saying for the last 12 years. Michael should have been tried. He's been tried. Jordan Chandler, you're a liar. Jason Francia, you're a liar. Gavin Arvizo, you are a disgusting liar. You know, all these people have tried to manipulate Michael, tried to use him and abuse him, and Michael's come out victorious, he's come out stronger. You know, we told you he'd be innocent, and I have to say, the media as a whole owe Michael Jackson a huge apology, and we do expect one. You know, we want to see the media apologise for Michael for the 12 years or more of humiliation, of degrading him, of just calling him every name under the sun. Apologise.
Well, the media has reported, certainly this media has reported the activities in a court of law. He faced a trial.
Plus opinions, and that's where you get the problems. But you know what? Right now, I'm just so happy.
Okay.
And
I thought you might be. Now tell me, how did you hear? What was the moment? You guys were outside the court, just across the street here. How did you hear the announcement?
Someone brought a radio, and we were listening to the live feed over the radios. Each count was read out, and he was proven not guilty. The atmosphere was just electric. It was amazing. It was just, you know, I felt so proud of Michael that he's come through this. He's been through, you know, a 12-year-long nightmare. He's been, you know, humble. He's been dignified and gracious throughout it all. You know, despite whatever mud that's been thrown at him, he's standing there. You're all kicking him, really. And I'm just so proud that he's come out of it the way he has.
He's dignified. Is he ill? He doesn't look very well.
Well, who would be at the best of spirits waiting for a verdict that's going to decide the rest of your life? You know, you have to realise he's human just like you and I, and if you put yourself in his shoes, would you not be worried and anxious? Would you not probably lose weight and have sleepless nights over it? He's just as human. He's going to experience the same emotion, so of course he's going to be down. But now it's time to recover and rest and relaxation.
But I would imagine there must be some disappointment. He went straight from the court, as soon as the judge had dismissed him, into the car, and off home.
That's what we wanted. No, that's
no,
exactly
you
what
guys
we
have been
wanted.
out here for months. Surely
But-
he could have said a few words to you.
No, at the end of the day, what matters is his safety. We wanted him to get out of the courtroom, into his car, and go home where he belongs. You know, he's had enough of the courtroom. He's had enough of the media. He will talk to us, but he'll do it at home, and that's what we want. We don't want him to go through any more of this. This nightmare is over. That's it. Cut a line. It's over.
But wouldn't it be more powerful if he told his own story of how pleased he was about his innocence, or whatever
Maybe
he wants
he
to
will.
say?
Maybe he
He's
will.
run away inside the black SUV.
I wouldn't say he's run away. I think he's... Imagine how long he's been waiting for this day, and he's gone through the stresses, the emotions. He must be, you know, he's with his family. That's what counts right now. Not the rest of us. We're here supporting him. You guys are here just reporting. You know, we don't matter in the sense that, you know, his immediate concern has to be his children. He wants to go back to his children. You know, that would be my first concern, my children. They're at home. So let him go back. Let him do what he feels is right. And I completely agree that he's chosen the best path.
There isn't a bit of disappointment in you. He didn't
Absolutely
speak to you,
not.
come
No,
to the
no,
fence,
I'm
maybe,
not
talk
I'm
to those
so
people.
ecstatic.
You've been doing the chants with the other people, innocent, for weeks on weeks. He didn't have a word for
Do
you.
you know what? I'm just so happy. They could have covered him in sheets and taken him out, and it wouldn't have, you know, made me upset or disappointed at all. And in fact, I told his family, make sure that when he comes out, you guys take him straight home, and that's what they did.
Okay, I don't know whether they did that strictly on your
no,
instructions, but
I know
anyway,
they
well,
wouldn't,
whatever.
but-
But you're now going to go to Neverland, and
We
many of
are.
the fans are?
I guess so, yeah.
But again, for what point? You're kept back on the street, on the road there at the intersection. Would you anticipate that he will come to talk to you there?
I'm not going to speculate because that's exactly what the media does. Whatever he chooses to do is fine by us. We're just going to continue to be around him to support him through this amazing victory, you know, a much anticipated victory, and we're going to be there for him, you know, as we said, from the beginning till the end, and you know, the party's just about to start.
Okay, this case, not proven, he was acquitted on these things. Do you think Michael Jackson needs to look to a lifestyle change, that perhaps enough is enough and that he should stop inviting young children to sleep over at his place?
I think what Michael needs to do, and I think the lesson that he probably needs to learn from this case, is don't trust people. People can be so evil, and when you've got the wealth and the resources that Michael has, you become a target. The bigger the star, the bigger the target. He needs to really evaluate the people he has around him, and when he does employ new people, or when he does allow people into his life, he needs to be sure that these people are trustworthy and they're not going to use him and abuse him.
We're just looking across the road here now. What are the honking cars? Perhaps this is some of your colleagues in the fan base making their way over to Neverland. Would you hope that he would come out and say something in the media or release something? Apparently he doesn't have a press secretary anymore. She's lost her job, but you need to hear something from the man himself,
I'm
don't you?
sure it will come. You know, give it time. It's, you know, we're not even half an hour since the verdict, and you know, people are already expecting more from him. Like, leave him alone now. Just let him rest. That's what he needs more than anything. I couldn't care less if we don't hear a word from him for another 2 years, as long as he's safe and happy.
I think the celebrations have begun from the cars, we say. What about his music career? Would you expect him to try and revive that now?
He's going back to #1.
You're convinced?
Absolutely. I was convinced of this, and look what happened. I'm convinced he's going back to #1.
Okay.
Watch
well,
this space.
on that precedent, maybe you'll be proved right. Annika, thank you very much
Thank
indeed for
you
talking to
very
us. Annika Kotecha has been one of the most ardent of Michael Jackson fans, who's been outside the courtroom here day in, day out in the build-up to the outcome of this case. If you're just tuning our way, we now know that Michael Jackson has been acquitted on all the charges that he was facing. Let's get more now from my colleagues who have been inside the media pool, just in that precinct of the courtroom. Jane Seck has been reporting on the case throughout all this, and Jane will be able to tell us perhaps a little bit more later on about the procedures now for the jury members. Now, the pictures you're watching are of the convoy heading back to Neverland, we anticipate, and that's where Annika, I was just speaking to, and many of the other fans are heading back to try and catch a glimpse, or perhaps I would imagine the expectation's got to be that they would hope he'd come out and say something to them or pass a message of some kind. But that's where Michael Jackson is going. He was in the precincts of this court for just 45 minutes before, as he heard of his total acquittal on all the charges that he was facing. The party, I think, has begun. As I just turn to look now at the courtroom, the number of the crowds diminishing rapidly. Just a few members of the media, the camera crews and the stills photographers still here capturing a picture for what I suppose in Europe will be tomorrow morning's paper. Here in the USA, the evening papers no doubt will want to relay this, just as the television channels are doing as well. Now, what we've been told to expect in terms of what will happen now, it could be that the jury, Tom Snedden, is going to be giving a press conference. As anticipated, here he is, Thomas Snedden, Jackson's lead defense attorney.
Getting this case and assisting us in putting on the evidence before the jury here. So that's the first thing I want to say. I guess the second thing I want to say is obviously we're disappointed in the verdict, but we work every day in a system of justice. We believe in the system of justice. And I've been a prosecutor for 37 years, and 37 years I've never quarreled with a jury's verdict, and I'm not going to start today. So basically, that's all we really had to say. I'll answer a few questions, but I'm probably not going to remain too long. So if anybody has a question far away,
I think we're going to start over here.
See how it goes.
Can you hear me okay?
I certainly can.
Hi. Have you spoken with the accuser and his family, and if so, what was their mood and the reaction to the verdict today?
No, as to all.
Can you address the defense's allegation throughout the trial that you rushed into this prosecution because of your past history with Mr. Jackson?
My past history of Mr. Jackson had absolutely, unequivocally, nothing to do with our evaluation of this particular case. That's been a nice little 30-second soundbite that the media has used to try to justify this thing, but it had never had anything to do with either the sheriff's investigation or our decision to file.
Can you address the fans' claim that the Santa Barbara DA was somehow trying to frame Michael Jackson, and all of this really is an elaborate scheme to frame Michael Jackson and make him look guilty?
I just answered that question.
Mr. Snedden, in retrospect, do you think you had the wrong family on the stand?
I don't know how much work you do in the criminal justice system, but the system I worked in for 37 years is that people come in and they're the victims of crime. We don't select our victims, and we don't select the families they come from. What we do is we evaluate the case. We try to make a conscientious decision as to whether or not we have enough evidence to go forward. And that's what we did in this case. We've done it in every other case since I've been the district attorney in this county, and we will continue to do that as long as I'm the district attorney of this county.
So you stand by what the family said in court?
I think that's evident.
There have been a lot of claims that because of the gag order you haven't been able to address. I mean, fans have, even Jackson's mother has said that you have some involvement with the Ku Klux Klan. Fans have claimed that you have relatives who are among the witnesses. Do you want to address any of those now that you finally can?
They're all false. We all did our job. We did it conscientiously. And anybody who knows Tom Snedden, knows Gordon Auchincloss, and knows Ron Zonin, the things that we've done in our community and the families that we have, knows all of that to be untrue. And if people would simply take the time to investigate the allegation before they print it, they'd know it's untrue also.
Have you looked into, and do you have concerns of reports that at least one of the jurors was peddling a book deal?
I had heard that.
You had heard that?
Yes.
And did you have concerns about that? And was it looked into?
Let's just say that it was taken care of by the court.
Would you reflect for just one moment on the conspiracy charge? Do you think that it might have been a better case without conspiracy, only child molestation?
I've learned a very expensive lesson in life a long time ago. That is, you never look back, you always look forward.
Tom, is this the end of your office pursuing Michael Jackson?
No comment.
What do you do now?
I don't think you want to know. I've been told not to crack any jokes, so we go back to work. We got a lot of cases that have been pending. I have an office to run. We're having budget hearings today. We're professionals, and we'll continue to act as professionals the way we act professionally in this case. And I'm not going to look back and apologize for anything we've done. We did a very conscientious, thorough job, as did the Sheriff's Department, investigating this case.
Would you answer the question whether witnesses that you put on the stand surprised you when they testified?
I mean, I'm not going to get into the trial. I just say that the experience of any trial lawyer like Gordon or Ron or anybody in my office, for that matter, who tries felonies is you never have a case where a witness, you don't get some surprises on both sides in both ways. And I think Mr. Mesereau would tell you the same thing.
You're watching live
That's
coverage from California. This is Tom
product
Sneddon,
of
the
being a
district
trial
attorney
lawyer and
who
learn to
took Michael
adjust
Jackson
and
to
go on.
court and
Why
lost.
did you
This
go
is the
ahead
press
with the case
conference.
when you knew the mother in particular to be such a troublesome witness?
I don't think the media generally understands the responsibility of a prosecutor. And I'll answer it this way, and the simple thing is when a victim comes in and the victim tells you they've been victimized and you believe that and you believe that the evidence supports that, you don't look at their pedigree. We look at what we think is what's right. You do the right things for the right reasons. If it doesn't work out, that's why we have a jury system. But we did the right thing for the right reasons.
Do you have any problem with the judge reading the jury notes privately without releasing to the media last Friday and having that?
Listen, the judge is the judge. He has the prerogative to do and run his court the way he wants. I have no criticism of the judge.
Do you think that's constitutional and you don't have any problem with that?
You know, Greta, I just, you know, that's the judge has done what he's done, and that's the way we have to live with what, as you know, what the judge does. I have no criticism of the judge whatsoever, none.
Tom, if there were pivotal moments in the trial when you thought it was going one way or the other, what were they?
I didn't think there were any.
Mr. Sneddon?
I didn't. I just that the case
if you
went on.
If someone came to you now with strong allegations of molestation on the part of Michael Jackson, what would you do?
We'd review it like any other case we review in our office, just like we reviewed this one.
You wouldn't shy from it now?
Well, the answer to the question, truthfully, is I probably wouldn't if it was a good case. But I think we all learned some lessons here that we thought we had a good case this time. And we thought we did a conscientious job, and the Sheriff's Department did a remarkable job of investigating it. But no, the people in this county elected me to do a job, and I've tried to do that conscientiously. And I'll continue to do that the same way.
Child molester has escaped unpunished?
No comment. Okay?
Do you hope that Mr. Jackson leaves Santa Barbara County?
No comment.
Can I just ask, what was your assessment of the defense team and how they did in this trial?
I absolutely have no comment about that.
Any estimate on the cost?
No.
You mentioned you'd learnt some lessons. What lessons have you learnt?
Well, I was referring probably more than anything else to the celebrity factor.
Can you
I'm
elaborate?
not the Lone Ranger in that faction.
Why does it take so long to try this case?
Actually, I thought the case went pretty fast, considering what the original estimates were. We were in trial for February, March, April, May.
So you don't think trials seem to take a little longer in California than...
Well, they definitely take a lot longer than they do in the South.
I'll give you that one.
Well.
Tom, when you walked into the courtroom, did you have an inkling what the verdict was?
No.
No?
We obviously had our aspirations, but certainly I had no inkling.
You mentioned the celebrity factor. Do you think that's played a key part?
Well, it seems to us it would, but maybe we're just looking for explanations in the wrong places. I don't know. Okay, any other questions? If you don't, we have some unfinished business. All right, thank you very much.
You're watching at Sky News. You're watching the pictures of Tom Sneddon, the district attorney in this part of California, who took Michael Jackson to court not once but twice and lost on both occasions. Now, Steve Corbett from the Santa Maria Times, columnist of that august publication, has been with us following these developments. You're listening to Tom Sneddon's words. There must be some questions about the wisdom of bringing this case at all now, mustn't there, Steve?
I live in the city, I live in this county, I pay taxes in this city and in this county. As a taxpayer alone, Tom Sneddon, as an elected public official, took seriously accusations and evidence brought to him. As a district attorney, he has to make a decision. Do you let it slide? Do you let it pass? Or if you believe that a case is to be made, do you bring it, no matter who it's to be brought against? Tom Sneddon brought that case, and I have no reason to believe Tom Sneddon did not and does not believe that that case was solid and loaded with integrity.
He was significantly asked by one of the journalists in there, is Michael Jackson a child molester? He said no comment. What do we read into that?
Tom Sneddon is trying to be virtuous after losing a decision in a court of law, a court that I believe Tom Sneddon and all the members of his staff respect. What he meant was that he wasn't going to repeat what he has spent a large part of his life putting forward in court through testimony, through evidence. Anybody who has to ask that question and doesn't know the answer really shouldn't be asking questions for a living.
Let me ask you a big question, perhaps an unfair one, but I think it's going to be asked in the hours and days ahead. The O.J. case, the Michael Jackson case, is it the case that celebrities are not guilty of anything in this country?
Robert Blake as well. Tom Sneddon, the district attorney, made reference to what he called the celebrity factor. And I do believe that the lure of celebrity in 2005 in the United States and throughout the world is very different than ever before. I believe that there is more of an emphasis on celebrity. There's more of an entertainment factor in news. There's more of a glittery specter of entertainment that permeates all this. I'm not saying the jurors succumbed to a celebrity factor, but I clearly believe that factor played a role in how they perceived who the defendant was and what they had to do to that defendant.
There's also going to be questions about the accuser, wasn't it? Tom Sneddon was asked, has he spoken to the accuser, the Arvizo's family? He hadn't at that point, as he gave the press conference just a few moments ago. But he was obviously convinced they had a story to tell that was the truth. The jury, presumably, we have to conclude, disagreed with him.
The jurors clearly did not believe the alleged victim or the alleged victim's brother or sister or anybody else who showed up on that witness stand to help them make their case. The jurors said, we don't believe you. We believe that you're not telling us the truth. And I have no reason to challenge their integrity. But at the same time, this is a child who's now 15 years of age, who was 13 years old, a cancer survivor when he alleged Michael Jackson committed sex crimes against him. This is a child who's already survived horrific pressure, who has an understanding of his own mortality maybe more severe than most of us who are alive and well. This is a little boy still who has to worry about dying from cancer, and this is a little boy who came forward. If he was telling the truth, this is a horrible, horrible injustice to him. If that child was lying under oath, this child needs our help, as he needs even if he was telling the truth.
Let's just have your words, because you've watched all the characters in this case go about their duties. You've watched Tom Sneddon and his team try to prosecute this case, as we now know, unsuccessfully. What about the defense team led by this charismatic figure of Mr. Mesereau? Do you think his skill as an arbitrator, as an orator in court, will be written up as key in this case?
Absolutely. The jurors believed Tom Mesereau. The jurors bought into Tom Mesereau's portrayal of his client, of the defendant, Michael Jackson, as Peter Pan. Mesereau defined Neverland as this wondrous, safe, healing fantasy land. And Thomas Mesereau discarded the pornography and the alcohol and the behavior that was described time and time again by Michael Jackson. Behavior that may not have been criminal, but behavior that's troubling, I believe, for people all over the world nevertheless. Tom Mesereau told a story and crafted a tale that convinced jurors Michael Jackson is this childlike, wonderful man, Peter Pan.
We're watching pictures actually on the screen of the convoy heading back to Neverland. We know that the fans, we've spoken to them as you have time and time again over this last few months, no doubt will be hoping for some word from their hero. What do you think's in store for Michael Jackson's life now? Can he return to be an entertainer, a chart-topping singer, maker of albums that are bought in every country around the world? Or does he have to mark this as a watershed and go find a new life, perhaps somewhere else?
Michael Jackson has to reinvent himself. The people closest to Michael Jackson really need to talk with him about his behavior, about the way he lives his life, and maybe they will. If they don't, I truly believe that Michael Jackson is vulnerable, is susceptible to putting himself in positions that might very well wind up in court again someday. Michael Jackson isn't Peter Pan. Michael Jackson grew up, I believe, considerably during this trial, and if he didn't, then there's no hope for Michael Jackson. I feel sorry for Michael Jackson, even though he won. I'd feel sorry for Michael Jackson if he had been convicted today. Michael Jackson lives a life that most of us would never trade ours for. Michael Jackson isn't even the average celebrity. Michael Jackson is what we see in this strange, often twisted portrayal of him living his life as he lives his life.
Steve,
he can
going to break in here.
Sure,
Thank
sure,
you for that.
sure.
We're just going to go to another. I think this is maybe the prosecutors, the sheriff's office, who carried out the prosecution on behalf of Tom Sneddon. We're going to hear from them now.
I truly believe that they have done the best job possible under the circumstances of celebrity and international scrutiny. Law enforcement personnel are advocates for victims, no matter who the suspect is. The sheriff and I are extremely proud of our department personnel and their professional actions in this case. Thank you very much.
They will be doing a paper review.
They will.
We are on air. Okay, just a few words then from that member of the police department, I think, or the sheriff's office. We would expect that perhaps the people who've been leading this successful defence of this man, as they swing past our camera position outside the gates of Neverland, we hear the cheers once again of Michael Jackson's fans. Without a hesitation, straight through that vantage point and into what is a sizable ranch, well away from prying eyes. Michael Jackson can now start to rebuild the rest of his life, this most momentous of occasions, in the lunchtime on this Monday, now behind him. 45 minutes inside the Santa Maria Court building, one final time, and acquitted of all the charges against him. Let's just continue our conversation with Steve Corbett here. I was interested it's a fairly small point, but you might be able to illuminate this in terms of this ability of jurors to publish their thoughts, their story afterwards. And we heard about this book deal. Indeed, you were able to tell us about it, Steve, some while that was rumoured. Are jury members at liberty to do that, or perhaps not make it known at the time during the running of the trial?
I believe there's a law in California, and again, I'm no attorney, that prohibits jurors from making any money for, I think, 60 days. Okay. But then jurors are free to do whatever they choose to do. It's very uncommon for news to break that a juror who is sitting in a current case has already made some attempt to bring an author into a deal for a book after the case. My understanding from talking to the reporter who broke that story is that the court had been made aware of that. Tom Sneddon, the district attorney, made reference to the court being made aware of that, and that Sneddon said it was taken care of.
What do you think he meant by that?
I don't know what he meant, because at that point, if this juror had reached out to an author for a possible book, no matter what the outcome was, I clearly believe that juror should have been removed as a juror. She wasn't. She wasn't. She was allowed to remain as a juror, she was allowed to deliberate, and she was allowed to render a verdict. Whether this acquittal will help a book deal or hurt a book deal,
your guess is as good as mine, I guess, or my guess is as good as yours. What do we reckon? The jury members, I think, have been afforded the opportunity, if they want to come and talk to the media. It's not obligatory, and we wouldn't expect all 12 to do that, will we? And certainly not the alternates, perhaps. But would you expect some of them might want to come and talk?
I would expect that, but on the other hand, I didn't expect the decision that was rendered by the jurors. Their behavior is as unpredictable as anyone else's. I would clearly believe, however, that there are some who want to sit before the cameras, some who want to write books, some who want to talk about what their experiences have been, and they have every right to do that. In fact, it might be best if if the best of them come forward. And when I say the best of them, I mean those who are best able to articulate what went on in that jury room.
Indeed. You know, what was the dynamic? Was
Right.
it that they were split, maybe 6-6, who
Right.
knows, when they first asked one another about the case? Was it an act of persuasion by one faction against another over the last few days? All these things may well emerge, I guess.
Yeah, the dynamics of jurors are very unpredictable. Often a leader emerges, and that leader is able to set the tone. Some people sit back and wait to see what other people are going to address and maybe go along with that. Each person brings their own identity and personality, the good and the bad, to a deliberation like that. And it will be interesting to hear the jurors discuss how they fared among each other and with themselves.
And we had the confusion, didn't we, about the amount of consultation. We were remarking on the fact that there appeared to be very little, apart from one administrative matter on Monday. Then late on Friday, it appeared there had been some testimony read back. There had been a couple of exchanges, more exchanges this morning. And interesting that it was the accuser's testimony, if I've got this right, Steve, that was being read back to the jury today. And once that had been done, suddenly we got a verdict.
There may very well have been a juror or two or three that needed persuaded. And perhaps when they tell us what happened, we'll have a better understanding of what went on in that jury room. But yeah, I didn't think that a verdict would be rendered today when I heard that there was a question, but then that question was withdrawn today. We now know what happened.
Somebody somewhere changed their minds,
Right.
perhaps. We'll learn some more. Steve, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for that. Let's return to my colleague, Jane Secker. Jane?
And legal analysts are picking over the different bits of evidence, the different witnesses, the reasons why Michael Jackson was found not guilty by all 12 members of this jury on all of the charges. I'm joined by Anne Bremner, the former prosecutor who we've heard from throughout this trial. Anne, why do you think he was found not guilty?
It's based on what Thomas Mesereau argued. If you don't believe his family, the accuser's family, beyond a reasonable doubt, you must acquit. And remember, he called them, actors. He called them liars. He called them false claimants. And that's what the jury, I think, found, is they couldn't believe the family. They couldn't believe the accuser, his mother, his brother, his sister, and that was the entire case.
How damaging do you think the mother in particular was, Janet Alviso? Because she came across very badly in the witness stand,
She
didn't
did.
she?
And I had said before, there's a circus outside court, there's a circus in court, and there's a circus in her head. She was just zany. I mean, hot balloons, taking her from Neverland, saying she was falsely imprisoned and getting manicure, pedicure, and body waxes, making claims against JCPenney that were false, making friends with celebrities and trying to get money from them. But she was just incredible. And I had always thought that she should not be called as a witness because she undermined the entire prosecution.
Anne Bremner, thank you very much. We're going now across to the press conference where members of the jury are about to give their statement to the media, so we'll hopefully be joining that now.
Okay, in the second row, please.
148.
But what juror seat number were you in the box?
I was an alternate
And-
one.
Thank you. Alternate one.
9.
9.
I'm 5. 12.
Number 1.
4.
Alternate number 2.
Alternate number 7.
Alternate number 5.
Alternate number 8.
Alternate number 4.
Alternate number 6.
Alternate number 3.
Good. Thank you all very much. We're going to begin the first question with the paper from one of the papers from Santa Barbara County. Identify yourself, and who would you like to ask?
Hi, my name is Dawn Hobbs. I'm with the Santa Barbara News Press, and first I would like to thank you for agreeing to participate in this. What did you think about the accuser's testimony as well as about the obvious absence of the boy from the '93 investigation?
And who are you asking that question of?
Number 2.
I would rather not comment on that right now. Maybe somebody else would like to answer that.
Anyone at all? Anyone comfortable with that? Let's move on, and maybe we'll come back as we move through. Let me turn then to the Associated Press.
Hi, I'm Linda Deutsch of Associated Press. It's nice to be able to talk to you all after looking at you for so many months. I'm wondering if there were any disagreements in the jury room when you first went in, or did you quickly find that all of you were pretty much in agreement? Any one of you can answer, perhaps number 5. We've been looking at each other across the room.
We've been smiling at each other, too.
That's right.
I think we all just looked at the evidence and pretty much agreed. Wouldn't you say so? Number 3?
We came in with our personal beliefs, but we did look at the evidence. We all came in with our personal beliefs, and some of those did differ, but we spent a lot of time really seriously studying the evidence and looking at the testimony and the jury instructions, and obviously came to an agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you pay attention at all or see all the sort of media circus out here? And if so, how did you sort of separate yourselves from that?
I'll answer some of that. Number
Okay.
2.
You're all jumping at that one. This is your chance to whack us.
No, we came in around the back, and we came in through the back door. And when we were allowed to park our private cars here, we also parked around the back. I'm speaking for just a few of us, I think, but we never really went around Miller Street or the front over here. We just avoided everybody, including the media, by going around the back and trying to stay as private and quiet as possible.
Anyone else want to add on the media, have thought on the media? You all jumped at it, it seemed.
I felt it the first time that I really felt the presence and stuff, I think, was our second day out of jury deliberations, when we all walked out to the van together, and seeing all those people on the right of us and on the left of us, it kind of hit you like, oh my God, where'd they all come from? And that, but you know, we could hear, you know, the media going back and forth and everything when we were outside and stuff, but otherwise it didn't really bother us that much at all.
Anyone else? Please, sir.
I think by the time we got to deliberation, we had all been so conditioned to the media that it didn't make any difference anymore. That was my personal feeling.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
What number, sir? Just one more time, your number?
Number 1.
Number 1, thank you. Turning across the aisle.
Rusty Dornan, CNN, juror number 1. I know you said in your statement that you meticulously all went through the evidence and that sort of thing, but what stands out in your mind as the most important thing that swayed you, that made you feel it was that you had to vote not guilty in this case?
I can't really point to any one specific item right now. I mean, there were tons of evidence to consider, and to pick one item out is really difficult. And I would just say that we considered all of the evidence, and of course, since it's a criminal trial, it had to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And in looking at all of the evidence and not just one specific item, I mean, that's the conclusion we arrived at. And I think we really worked hard and were very careful in making that decision.
Any testimony, though, that just stood out in your mind, that kind of, in your own head, you thought, well, this isn't right, I just can't?
As I sit here right now, I can't point to anything specific.
Okay, across the aisle.
Hi, Quentin Kushner from the Santa Maria Times. Just curious, what was your opinion of the attorneys' performances, both from the prosecution and the defense, as they tried this case? For anybody?
I think they're all wonderful litigators, very well prepared on both sides.
I'd like to. I think it was a sight to see, because I've never seen anything like this, and you've seen it on TV all the time, and now you actually see it up close and personal, and it's like, wow, you know. For my first time doing jury duty, it's pretty interesting, to say the least.
And we got to see their faces like you guys didn't. So when stuff was going on, we could see, you know, their sighs or their yes and stuff like that, and we could see what they were thinking in their selves there.
Anyone else have a feeling? Okay, let's move on to across the aisle.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Salvador Duran. I'm with Telemundo, Channel 52, Los Angeles. I would like to find out if the fact that Michael Jackson is an international superstar, what role did that play in your decision making? And I would also like to ask Mr. Foreman if any of you speak Spanish, to also, after you answer my question, to briefly make a statement in Spanish for the large Spanish audience across the United States.
Well, personally, I think we looked at all the evidence. We looked at Michael Jackson, and one of the first things we decided that we had to look at him as just like any other individual, not just as a celebrity. And once we got that established, that we could go beyond that, we were able to deal with it just as fairly as we could with anybody else.
Do you speak Spanish, sir?
I'd rather have her answer.
Oh, I couldn't.
Brief, if you could just tell us just what your thoughts on the fact that Michael Jackson is a megastar known around the world. En español, por favor. ¿Qué piensa, señora?
No creo que podría comunicar bien.
No está muy bien.
No creo que podría hacerlo al momento.
Okay. Pero ¿qué piensa en general del resultado final?
El resultado en general, creo que tuvimos mucha consideración en los testimonios de las personas que vinieron aquí y tomamos en consideración la evidencia y basado a eso hicimos nuestra conclusión.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. And going across the way to your question.
I wanted to direct this question mainly to the parents on the jury, somebody with children. And some of the more troubling evidence to many observers was about Mr. Jackson sleeping in bed with children. And I was wondering if you found that troubling or believable, and B, if you would approve if your own children would do such a thing.
And were you asking that of...
Any parents on the jury? I see you nodding, ma'am. I could like to ask you.
Well, as a parent, you know, it's something that you are constantly, every moment of your day, you're protective over what happens to your children. And I guess I might be speaking maybe for myself and a few others, jurors, that, you know, what mother in her right mind would allow that to happen, or you know, just freely volunteer your child, you know, to sleep with someone, and not just so much Michael Jackson, but any person for that matter. So that's something, you know, that mothers, I think, are naturally concerned with.
So did you feel that the mother in the case was at fault rather than Mr. Jackson?
I'd like to comment on that, but I believe at this time I probably shouldn't.
Okay, that would be the end for that. Let's move it along.
Hi, thanks for all of you to come. My name is Steve Lentz from KFWB Radio. If I could just ask, when the mother, Janet Arvizo, looked at you and said, "It's burned right here in my brain," I can tell you the media kind of laughed. Could I just ask your reaction when you heard, you know, the comment from the mother, you know, when she looked at you directly and talked to you?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I am.
Well, you know, I'm number 10. She said a lot of things that were maybe a little, they came on very strong, you know, and when she said it was something, you know, burned right there, I kind of felt that, you know, she, there was a lot of things probably burned right there, so, you know, I don't know how to answer that, really.
Could we go to the lady behind you there, please? Yeah.
I'm number 5. I disliked it intensely when she snapped her fingers at us. That's when I thought, don't snap your fingers at me, lady.
Thank you. Well, number 4, I know.
I was very uncomfortable with that. A lot of the witnesses looked over at us from time to time, but then they'd look back, but she didn't take her eyes off of us, so that was a very uncomfortable feeling.
Number 4, thank you. I know that we're sort of cruising along and are timid. You guys are feeling okay? I just want to touch base with you. Okay, good. I'm going to stay with print for a moment. We're trying to alternate print TV. So print would go next, then TV after that.
Hi, my name is Nick Madigan. I'm with the New York Times. I just wondered whether there was anybody in all the long line of witnesses, there were, I think, 140-odd witnesses, who you found credible. And if so, why? Because obviously you found everyone you found him innocent on all counts. So I just wonder whether there was anything that actually rang true, and if so, who and why. And I believe you were interested in talking about that.
I'm very comfortable at saying the telephone people were very credible.
That's
all.
Well, is there anyone else who found anyone credible? There were a lot of witnesses.
Wait, Jen.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. The lady in pink.
I found Kiki, her testimony, to be credible. Fournier, housekeeper. Also, Jesus. Jesus Salas. His testimony.
I think I saw some folk maybe on my right in the back. Did anyone want to add to that? I just want to be sure we respect your thoughts. Any
No,
adds?
just adding the last name, Jesus Salas is another credible witness that we
So
thought.
no one in the
Aja?
family, no
Aja Pryor.
no
Aja
boys,
Pryor.
no previous victims, that's what we're calling them, but anybody at all? Guess not. All right, thank you.
And we move across to TV.
Jane Velez Mitchell from Celebrity Justice, and thank you for coming out and speaking. We appreciate it, and having seen you this whole time. A question, and I think I would start with the juror number 5, the lady back there. A lot of people said the timeline was one of the biggest problems with this case, that the conspiracy had some problems, that the allegations of molestation began 19 days after the cover-up began. What are your thoughts on the timeline, how the prosecution presented that, and some of the things that happened in the interim of that timeline?
I really don't want to comment on that right now. We discussed that, and maybe number 3 would like to take that one.
Go for it, number 3.
We spent a lot of time, and personally that was very confusing in the beginning, but I wrote to the point where I can hardly use my thumb. I'm very proud of everyone here. We took notes so well that we could develop the timeline on the boards and really analyze it. So it was a question. The timeline was a concern.
Concern or problem?
I think let's move across. We keep moving.
Dan Whitcomb from Reuters News Service. For the foreman and anyone else who wants to answer, we heard a tremendous amount of testimony about the pornography found in Mr. Jackson's room, all the explicit material, alcohol, sleeping with boys supposedly. Jesus Salas, who several of you said was a good witness, testified to him being drunk 4 days out of the week. I'm wondering if any of you were disturbed by any of that, if that gave you pause, if that factored into the deliberations, and how you feel about that at this point.
Well, we went through a lot of fingerprints, latent prints, ridges, you name it. I think we heard it all, things we've never even thought about. But again, the fingerprints, I think, had a lot not to do with the case, because those are adult magazines. Anyone can own them. I think that's all I want to say about that right now, but anybody else?
Did you find that testimony credible, or did you kind of reject it and say, this hasn't been proven to me? Or did you decide, maybe it's proven, but it doesn't prove the charge?
That would be it right there. It doesn't prove the charge.
Anyone else? All right, let me go to television then.
Hi, Kimmy Culp with ABC News and Good Morning America. Juror number 5 and juror number 10, specifically, you guys certainly have spent a lot of time together over the past few months and experienced a very unique situation. Talk to me about the dynamic and, whether you formed some lasting friendships on this jury.
Oh, we certainly, shall I go first? We certainly have formed lasting friendships, and really close, it's really a close-knit thing. You just can't imagine how lost we felt when the alternates left us. It's like part of us left, and we just felt. But I think we're all going to keep this up as
That's why
friends.
we want them here for support.
Yes,
Because we just
yes.
needed them with us, and we did.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think coming from all different walks of life and all different types of employment, we're really a good support system for each other. We all had different views, of course, but sometimes we found that we had a lot of things in common and that we did think alike, but of course when it came to the fine details of things, fortunately, we did get to know each other in being tight quarters, that we were able to have discussions and not screaming matches. And we had a lot of good food.
One thing out of this whole thing that I was telling him today, is that I made 19 new friends, over 6 months. And, I mean, I'm happy about that. I appreciate them all, What? That I made 19 new friends out of this. And I'm glad I got that out of this.
I see one. Hold on. Let's come over to you. Over here is the camera. And go ahead, please.
And the beauty of that was that we all set the intent to begin with, that we would get along no matter what we decided or what we saw, that we would discuss it and we would keep it cool. And we did.
Let me go to a .com.
Hi, Roger Friedman from FoxNews.com. Thank you for being here. We could probably keep you here for hours asking you questions, especially the reporters who've been in the courtroom the whole 3 months. We've been staring at you guys.
Yeah, but I promise we wouldn't.
I wanted to ask you, maybe alternate number 5, because I feel like I was looking at you a lot during the case. 2 questions. One is, did the 1108 stuff mean a lot to you? The Macaulay Culkin, Brett Barnes, Wade Robeson, Jason Francia. Did that really play an impact with you? Because that has not been used much in cases, and it was developed especially for Michael Jackson from 10 years ago. And the other question is, for all of you, you were told by Mesro that the Arvizos were con artists, liars, and thieves. Is that something you thought earlier in the game? Is that something that was going through your head while you were watching them as they came and went, and you heard testimony about them?
I just want to say that, as alternates, we took it as serious as being jurors. We, at all times, even in the time waiting when we weren't there, we felt we were there. And everything that we saw was extremely important. Macaulay Culkin was as extremely important as every other piece of evidence that was shown. I can't say that any one piece was more extreme than another. It all was important. The whole situation was extremely sad, and there's not a person in this area that takes lightly what went on the last 4 months.
I was asking about the 1108 because it was supposed to be about a preponderance of evidence.
Step forward a little bit. The camera can't see you. Just step forward just a little bit. There you
Come
go.
on.
Because the 1108 was supposed to show that it was a preponderance of evidence that would lead up to a conclusion.
I'm still going to tell you that not any one piece stood out than any. We considered everything, and I know that every person here sitting here can tell you the exact same thing. They considered every piece as extremely important. We think it was an important piece, but it was only a piece, and the judge instructed us on that in the very beginning.
Anyone else want to add to that? I know I'm getting a little bit of a time cube. I've got to take 1 or 2 more as we wrap up, or as long as you can hang on. Anyone else want to add? Let's go to print. And we have short, quick questions now before we lose the jury.
I'm Tina Sussman from Newsday newspaper in New York. I had a question. I believe it's for juror number 8. Yeah, you were crying very openly while the verdicts were being read. You looked extremely emotional. I'm just wondering if you could explain what was going through your mind, what made you sob so openly. You looked heartbroken, actually.
Well, it's very emotional. And I wasn't the only one crying, okay? Even though it might be because I'm sitting up front, all right, I had to pass it around. But after deliberating for as long as we did, and emotions everybody goes through, and, just everything, it just realize that it's done, and it's over. And that we all can now go on with our lives as much as possible normally that will be. But yeah, it was very emotional. There's like a no-win situation, for the Arvizo family or for Michael Jackson. Everything that both families had gone through. But we had to do what we were instructed to do, and that's what we did.
Anyone else want to add to that? All right, let's go one last TV question.
Hi, I'm Sarah Claggett. I work at the Today Show and with Dateline NBC. We all left here on Friday at 2:30, wondering how long we were going to be here. What changed the 4 hours this morning in your deliberations to come up with a verdict? Number 1.
I actually didn't believe we'd be finished today.
Yeah, I
I don't think anybody did. I think having the weekend to do some thinking about it helps. You come in with a clearer mind, maybe, of where you're going and what you have to do. But to think that we would have been finished today, that hadn't entered my mind this morning. There was still a lot of ground to cover, but I think once we understood all the evidence and we talked it out, that it was clear what we had to do.
Do the rest of you think you'd be here longer?
I did.
I was surprised. I wasn't expecting to be out today, so, I mean, I thought it would be perhaps, sometime this week, but I didn't think it would be today.
I'm getting some signals that, no, we're doing questions individually. We're not going to do screaming. I promised them that. I'm going to hold to that promise. I'm getting signals that you're okay for a little bit more. A little bit. Can we ask your indulgence? Can I get you water or anything at all? You're all good? All right, let's stay over here for a moment, then we'll go over there.
Thanks for doing this. We saw you all taking meticulous notes, and you did an amazing job. Art Harris with Entertainment Tonight in The Insider. Tom Mesereau said this was about reasonable doubt, and I just wondered if you could explain to us what reasonable doubt you all found. Any of them?
Who would like that?
Oh, just a short comment. We had 98 pages of instructions, and we referred to them quite diligently, and we kept going back to it. It has to be beyond a reasonable doubt.
Anyone else? Anyone else for that?
We actually challenged one another in the deliberation room. I mean, it wasn't, I don't want to give the impression that this was a really slam dunk deal where you just go in to a room and 12 people agree. I don't think 12 people can agree on anything except that the sun might come up tomorrow morning. And beyond that, you got to talk about it. And we did talk about it. We challenged the issues, and we came to the decision that pointed to reasonable doubt.
Just some inside information. We did have little jobs for a lot of people. We assigned a scriber for ourselves, so she took notes. We had a timekeeper over here, so he'd keep us on track. What else am I missing? We had a reader. We had a reader over here. He became our reader. So anytime we wanted to go back to the instructions, the 98 pages, he practically had them memorized. He'd say, "Oh, I know where that is," so he'd go to that page.
Believe it or not, we raised our hands to speak.
We had a bell if we got out of turn, and that happened.
We had a timer once.
It
didn't work out too good.
Up
I
at the
have
board.
timeline lady right here, so.
And closet of evidence.
I think the closet of
evidence lady.
evidence really said it all. Every time that we came up to a stopping point, we all had to remind ourselves that we have a closet full of evidence that really made us always come back to the same thing. It was just not enough,
And we did look at the gate logs and the telephone logs again.
And we put them back where they belonged.
Lorna?
In order.
Yes, Lorna, we put
There are lots of people with lots of questions. Let's go to the other side, and we'll just ping back and forth. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Shayla Bezer with Fox News Channel. Thank you all for coming out to talk to us. Did you, while reviewing the evidence, did you and do you now believe that the family, the accuser's family, were thieves and scam artists that were trying to frame Michael Jackson?
Who would like to take that?
Anybody?
We'll
start with number 2.
The thought was definitely there. You couldn't help but wonder many times just the way things on the timeline and things just didn't add up. So yes, the thought was there several times.
burned in here.
And one other thing too, I guess the mother, when she looked at me and snapped her fingers a few times and she says, "You know how our culture is," and winks at me, I thought, no, that's not the way our culture is. So.
And continuing, Marty Kasendorf of USA Today.
Hello, Martin Kassendorf for USA Today for the four-person juror number 2. Last Friday, I believe you asked the court to have some testimony read back, some of the transcript. Can you tell us just what that was?
Well, just briefly, it was on the young man that was the accuser. We just wanted to make sure that we all had the same information in our heads so we could talk about it, discuss it, come up with the same answers and the same results.
What part of it?
Probably the first half, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. First 2
Yeah.
days.
First 2 days.
And let's go to print for LA Times, which would be next. Hold on. Give him a microphone.
Hi, I'm Stuart Pfeiffer from the Los Angeles Times, and I have 2 questions for juror number 9. Your husband is a television journalist. I know that all of you probably had difficulty with this. I'm wondering how you personally, how difficult it was to not talk to your family and relatives and friends about the case and to avoid the massive amount of information that was out there. And then my second question would be totally unrelated. How many votes did you guys end up taking on the different charges, if you could estimate that?
Both for number 9?
Both for number 9.
My husband, as a reporter, I don't find it difficult at all. Actually, he's very good. I mean, we don't even talk about it. He knows what we both have to do. And the way I figure it out, if I talk to him and if he spread it out, it will be so obvious it came from me, and I wouldn't even think about that. How many votes? I don't know. Two.
Mm-hmm.
On each count or on all counts?
It varied. I don't want to. We don't want to say we took 2 votes and stick to that because we did discuss it thoroughly. I mean, if we weren't sure of something, we would discuss it again. It might be for 2 or 3 hours or the whole day on that one issue. And when we'd vote again, then we felt more comfortable with it.
So each count varied as to the number of votes.
Let's stay on microphone, otherwise it'll fall apart, we'll lose it. KNX, we'll go to electronic, go there.
Okay. Hi, I'm David Singer with KNX News Radio. I have a question for each of you. We all were listening as the judge lifted his order, and you can now read and see about the Jackson case. And I'm wondering, after this many months, if you have any intention of doing that, or if you're completely Jacksoned out at this point.
Jacksoned out.
I'm Jacksoned out at the moment. I kept all the newspapers, and at some point I would like to go back and look at it, but I think probably, for at least a month, I don't want to see anything.
And we'll go just quickly to print now.
Frank Swartlow, People Magazine. Janet Arvizo, do you think that she set up this whole sort of scam, conspiracy, whatever, that her kids were lying and she was lying? And lastly, what did you think of Michael Jackson's demeanor? That would be the foreman, number 2, please. Anyone else?
On Jackson's demeanor, I don't know what to say about that, really. We did watch his, the way he was sitting there when we could get a glimpse of him, and especially when certain questions were asked, and just for a reaction to see how he was coming across to certain things that were being presented by the witnesses. But Janet Arvizo, maybe somebody else would like to answer that.
No comment.
We feel sorry. I personally feel that, I don't know, as a mother, to the values and stuff that she has taught them and they've learned, and that is really hard for me to comprehend, because I wouldn't want any of my children to lie for their own gain. I don't know, it's hard.
I think we have stuff over here to the right, camera.
I was just going to comment on Michael Jackson's demeanor, and from my perspective, where I sat as a juror, I couldn't really see Michael Jackson that much of the time, and even if I had been able to, I probably discounted the fact that he was even in the room for 90% of the time. It was a case where you focus on the witness, you focus on the evidence, and whether it was Michael Jackson sitting there or somebody else, it didn't really affect me much while we were in the courtroom.
I know that Juror 4 had raised her hand as well.
The only thing I have to say about the Arvizo family is you know, I felt that there was enough reasonable doubt there.
Thank you very much. Let's go to TV and, all right, KEYT, sure.
John Palmentary with KEYT in Santa Barbara. Thank you very much for speaking to us. The district attorney said he thought the case actually went a little bit fast. This is for any of you. Did you think that you needed more information, that you were going to get more information, or did you at some point say, we've heard enough, we can make up our decisions, they're just grinding our way or bringing out more people, that we don't need any more of this, that we've heard enough? Or did you think that we were going to have several more weeks of testimony? Did it go fast for you?
I felt like we were really left in the dark about some things, and questions weren't answered, but we had to make do with.
And at that point, we're just going to continue our coverage of this press conference by members of the jury in the Michael Jackson trial. If you're just tuning in, as you can see on screen, Michael Jackson acquitted on all counts. That jury press conference is going to continue for another few minutes. We've got that for you on Sky News Active. Press the red button and you can access that. Let's return to London, to the studios there. Here's Alan King. Alan?
Martin, thanks very much indeed for that. We are, as Martin says, back in London now. Joining us is showbiz writer Ashley Pearson. Ashley, welcome. Good to see you with us. Well, a number of people expressing surprise that there weren't at least some guilty verdicts on perhaps the more minor charges. What's your reaction to what we've seen?
Well, like a lot of other people, I was surprised. You know, the fact that the jury took so long, you know, over a week to make these deliberations, led many of us to believe that they were going to find him guilty on one of the lesser charges. The defense expected them to come back right away and say he was innocent, and that's not what happened. So I think, yes, I think many of us were quite surprised that he was found not guilty of everything today.
What is the showbiz element, apart obviously from the Michael Jackson machine? That shouldn't, of course, have any effect on what happens within those doors of the court.
Well, that's just not the way it works, is it? I mean, you have to understand, whatever happened, I mean, clearly if he went to jail, that's a whole nother level of shame and degradation. But the tinge of pedophilia, the charges, this isn't something that's going to go away. And you have to remember, a lot of things emerged during the court case. The fact that he slept with the boy for about 300 out of 365 nights one year, the fact that he had lots of pornography. Neverland is no longer going to be seen as this happy, magical place for children. There is a tinge upon that will remain. So the fact that he's not actually going to jail will not have that much of effect on how he's vilified by the public. I mean, look at O.J. Simpson. He was found innocent, or he was acquitted, and yet he is still regarded by many as a murderer, and that may be what happens with Michael Jackson.
But Michael Jackson got over, didn't he, the Geordie Chandler case. Now, he wasn't, of course, found guilty of any crime, but he did pay money, or was believed to have paid money.
Yeah, and the difference there, though, is that was kept very, very quiet. All we ever knew was that this young boy had accused Michael Jackson of some very bad things. He was paid money. He went away. We never even saw a photograph of him for 10 years. In this particular instance, we heard so many salacious details about Michael Jackson's private life, saw pictures of the magazines he has, heard all kinds of sordid tales about giving alcohol to children disguised in Diet Coke cans. We sort of know too much now to ignore. And even though he's been acquitted, I think people will remember this.
But, you know, we saw the jury, didn't we, just a moment ago, Ashley, and elderly lady in the jury, more than one elderly lady, and they didn't seem to mind that pornography because it was perfectly legal for him to own it. And look at the reaction of the fans. There's no diluting of their adoration of him.
Well, you saw that one woman releasing a dove every time they announced, you know, the next charge that he was acquitted of. Michael Jackson's fans are rabid. They are absolutely passionate about Michael Jackson, and that is one thing that is true for sure. And these fans were convinced of his innocence all the way through. They believed and they regarded him as innocent. They were never going to be dissuaded, even if he'd been found guilty. And they are rejoicing today that what they believed to be true has actually come to fruition.
Good to talk to you, Ashley Pearson. Thanks very much
You're
indeed for
welcome.
joining us.
Ashley, thank you. Well, let's have a look at what tomorrow's newspapers think of the Michael Jackson trial. Joining us now for the first edition's review is Topaz Amor. A surprising verdict, many are saying, but what do the newspapers think?
Well, it's interesting. We've only so far got the Sun, the Mail, the Express and the Independent, which actually have changed their front pages. But the one word that is missing, very obviously, is the word innocent. What we have is the Sun saying Jacko in the clear, the Mail and the Express both have the big word cleared, and the Indie says Jackson walks free. But they use the words like sensationally acquitted, dramatically acquitted. The impression that is given is very much one that there is total surprise about this, and as I say, that word innocent is conspicuously absent.
Why is that then?
Well, because I think that, just as Ashley was saying, there are a lot of people out there who are surprised by the verdicts, who think that there isn't smoke without fire, and they feel that many of the things that have come out about him during the trial, the strangers of his life, mean that he's not entirely innocent, you know, even if the jury has come back and said he's not guilty.
The jury were meticulous in their work. They were conscientious. It seems, looking at them and listening to correspondents who've seen them during their task over the last 4 months, say that they can't be criticised.
Oh no, I mean, we saw them take copious notes, and in the end it came down to one person's word, or, you know, the defence versus the prosecution, in that there was no forensic evidence that would link him to taking part in any sexual molestation at all. It was just the demolition by the defence of the Arvizo family was complete and absolute, and it worked brilliantly. And reunited, that the Jackson 5 might come back on a comeback tour and call the tour Framed. You know, I think that he will take a long time, though, to recover. You know, Michael Jackson, when he came out of court, that's the other thing. The papers haven't got a great victory speech from him to get their teeth into. He did that one gesture, he put his hand to his heart, and then he was in that SUV and back to his haven in Neverland.
Surprising, perhaps, that The Independent has decided to run with Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, The Independent, it goes for these very bold front pages, though. It likes a one-story front page, and you can't get bigger than this. I mean, people might say that England beating the Australians was a better victory, but for The Independent, they've gone for the drama.
But to all intents and purposes, it's a showbiz story. We are, in other areas of the news, talking about climate change, debt relief for Africa. Surely these are bigger issues.
Yeah, they are, but I think that when you get a big story like this, some people, you see, they might not have been, the news came quite late. You know, you've got to think about a newspaper buyer. They might have been in the pub tonight, they might not have known that this dramatic verdict has come through, because it came through quite early, more early than people thought. So they're going to wake up tomorrow and want to read the news.
That word conspicuous by its absence, innocence. Topaz Amor, thank you.
Well, stay with us here on Sky News. We will, in a few minutes' time, be going back live to Santa Maria. Martin Stanford is there for us on the day that Michael Jackson is cleared of all 10 charges against him. The latest coming up in a moment.
OK, Kevin, thank you very much indeed for that. Yeah, you can see the scene just outside the courtroom behind us. It really is, after the major event of the day, this acquittal, to the surprise of many, on every count that he faced, of Michael Jackson. Pop superstar back home at his ranch, now Neverland Ranch, a free man. Now, my colleague who's been covering this case for us throughout the duration of this lengthy trial is Jane Secker. She joins us again from within the media pool at the courtroom. Jane?
Well, Michael Jackson, of course, at his Neverland Ranch with his friends and family around him. But talking to us now down in the media pens here outside the court is Deborah Opry. She's the family's attorney. Deborah, you always said that he was going to be found innocent. What's your feelings today?
Well, that time you did the interview at the home, all I can tell you is I never changed my opinion. I never lost faith. Catherine, Joe, the kids, Michael never lost faith. Tom Mesereau and his gang never lost faith. What we need to remember, in the media in America, we have a habit of convicting people by a trial of media pundits, and it's got to stop. The media must take a step back and resume reporting the news and stop trying to make it. Michael Jackson was found innocent by a jury of his peers after they reviewed the evidence. And that's the way we have got to get back. The media must take this case and use it as a litmus to the way they should be conducting themselves up the road.
But do you think he's really been found innocent? Is it not the case that he's just been found not guilty? The two aren't exactly the same, are they?
I want to explain something, and I really want to be clear about it. Michael Jackson is an innocent man tonight. Tom Mesereau's words of justice was served, an innocent man was set free, should be what everyone remembers. Michael Jackson isn't a guilty man who didn't have enough evidence to prove him guilty. Michael Jackson, in our law in the United States, is innocent until proven guilty, and he was not proven guilty. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that.
How do you think he's feeling? Because he's looked a broken man over the last few weeks. The weight loss, even today, he just looked absolutely devastated, even after the verdict.
I'm telling Michael's family to sit him down at the table and get some food into him and get him to start eating again. He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
How do you think the family will be coping? Because I know his mother, Catherine, especially, has found this very hard, and she's been here every day supporting him.
Catherine and Joe walked out with the whole group, and they looked at me, squeezed the hand, and they winked, and they said, "You see?" And I said, "You didn't have to show me." They believed.
What do you think the atmosphere will be like at Neverland this evening? For example, I mean, what do you think is actually going on?
They're cooking and they're eating, and they're eating and they're eating, and soon I will be eating.
So are you going to go up there and join the family?
No comment.
There was some speculation that Michael Jackson was going to open his Neverland gates and allow everyone to come in.
Let's enjoy the moment today. The moment today is the nightmare is over, and what Michael Jackson does an hour from now or tomorrow or the next day, let that be tomorrow. Tonight, let the family and Michael breathe that fresh air of innocence. It smells good.
Do you think that this message, this innocent message, really has got across the world, or do you think that there are still going to be people who've got many question marks now next to Michael Jackson's name?
No one should doubt our system of justice. Michael Jackson walked out of that courtroom a free man. A free man. There should be no cloud or judgment over him. A jury of his peers said he's innocent.
How do you think he's coped with having so much of his private life picked over? We saw all the pornographic magazines, the fact that he drinks and out of soft drinks cans.
That is stuff that doesn't concern me, and it shouldn't concern anyone else. Why? Michael Jackson is a human being. Tom Mesereau said in closing arguments, he is a human being whose entire life was opened up because of a district attorney. Now, I'm telling you, Tom Stedman, it's time for him to get a life. Okay?
We know that the district attorney is going to be retiring soon, probably. But just thinking back
go to Disneyland.
Just thinking back to Michael Jackson, what do you think he's going to do now? Do you think he's going to make some kind of public statement? He made statements throughout the trial in various ways.
I have earned my living knowing my place, and my place is as Joe and Catherine's attorney. Michael has his people, he has his spokespeople, he has his attorneys. Let them speak on his behalf. Speaking on behalf of the family, they want to say thank you to everyone who believed in their son's innocence and their brother's innocence.
How tough has it been for them these last 4 months?
Imagine yourself in their shoes and then answer the question.
Has it brought them closer together in any strange way?
Let the record be clear. Michael Jackson's family is close. It always has been close. And when push came to shove, Michael Jackson's family came up to bat, and they were there for him from the beginning through the end. And God bless that family. We should all learn from that family. And I don't care what anybody has to write to sell a newspaper or to fill up some airtime. I'm telling you, that family, it's a wonderfully close family, and God bless them.
They're also a wonderfully strange family in many ways. They've had a very unusual existence, the children being performers from an early age, perhaps a family that many people would look at and not understand. Are you able to tell us anything about Michael Jackson's children in terms of how much he's protected them during this trial?
I won't even try. None of my business.
Do you think that they're aware of what's going on, though, or have they been closeted by the family from
None
it
of my
all?
business, no comment. I will say this to you. This case is probably one of the largest cases that you'll ever see of this magnitude, of this crime charged. We must walk away from this trial with one understanding. Michael Jackson is not a child molester. Okay?
Opry, thanks very much, and I'll let you get back off to the
get
family.
married, have some champagne. I gave them their good luck here. I hope this
Thanks,
is live.
Deborah.
Happy marriage.
So thanks,
Safe
Deborah.
journey home.
So Deborah Opry, the Jackson family attorney, I think she's been on the champagne herself this afternoon. She seems absolutely thrilled with this verdict, as many members, of course, of the Jackson family are, and his fans are, and they've all now followed the Jackson entourage down to Neverland, where he's believed to be celebrating with his family at this moment as we speak.